No, we can do it now.
So I see if I understand. Okay. Okay, so we have wait a minute, that, something more important, you didn't use any of this, right? No, right?
Correct, we did not.
Correct.
Okay, so we got that.
But,
What
oh,
does
yeah.
this mean?
Did he come?
Did we lose that?
Straight south town.
So then I should add this to this, so now we're at 27.
Where
No,
would your?
he had probably
This
one,
this
and
is
there's
in there.
He had
It's
7
gotta
and
be
then.
between
yes.
Got it,
where I live
okay,
Yes.
then,
and
okay, then we go over
Between
here
me
and I
and
subtract
town
8.9.
is where they're
Come up with that, John.
observed.
But I don't quite get this.
It's off of 13, County Road 13.
Oh, it is.
The Steakhouse Road.
Yep.
That's what I
West.
don't understand.
If you go to Steakhouse Road, then it's like, I
So
think it's 6 miles, 7 miles.
he
Oh,
okay.
accrued 4 hours.
Because he had
Overtime.
overtime.
I do.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
just
2.5
this side
hours
of it.
overtime, time and a half.
The first 7 quarters are
Okay.
street.
Okay.
And
And
it's like a
he used, he's
2/3
going
mile
to use
down the road, half a mile.
13
South or
hours of
north?
them.
They
But
take them,
because he accrued
Okay.
some,
South.
he really,
Okay.
you netted,
Okay.
she nets
Yeah.
those two. And so
And
really,
if
he
you were to drive by,
only
would
used
you
for
see their-
8.9
no,
No,
well,
hours.
you would, if
So
you
he
drive by
was going to
474, you see the buildings.
He was
Okay.
going to
The
use,
lodge building, there's
Of this
It's actually, it's in a
17.8.
building that opens out. You
Used.
wouldn't
She doesn't look like
She
that.
didn't
Tell
because
us.
he
Yeah.
approved
You know
it,
what
so
opens.
he just
So
added
she
this
Yeah.
to.
It's not what I meant.
and actually, this is the
Yeah, no, this is-
earlier page.
you know, right.
No, this is the earlier.
Or
this
that's
is
the earlier.
I haven't
So
seen
if I
it.
add, but then
Somebody's taken
if
over
he
it up
used
for a while.
8.9 and he had,
Yeah, they have,
17.8,
there's two,
they
actually
have
two
more.
types of,
Oh,
a
right.
big one and a smaller
it's
one.
not quite.
That have, they're
He
in
had
buildings.
from this the
And
first
they're
paycheck.
In a good position
Used-
between big
he
cities.
used 8.9.
Right, yeah.
Sioux Falls and
Okay,
Sioux
so
City.
we say,
They're in a
okay,
dark
this
spot.
plus 8.9
Pretty much,
gives me
although
8.18, so I have no
They
trouble
only
here.
show them
It's just
new moons. when
this
they don't-
count, and I don't,
That's the only time
Maybe
they're
that's
ever open.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well-
every month there's a new moon.
but I don't get where the
Here,
count
there's
used
no-
was
So they can turn
13.
my other yards on top.
Yeah,
Okay,
and they just turn on there.
did you look at this? Okay, so we have,
Which one?
I follow it to here,
I gotta look. I
8.9.
didn't-
Oh, you survived
It's
this
just
one,
crazy
thing I
if
don't
someone
understand.
stands up
Did I show you the
and
doesn't
picture?
go
Yeah.
of the airplane?
Yeah, I've been surprised that-
This,
I couldn't
that,
believe
less
I've been there
that,
for about
is
20
that.
years.
And then they tried to
It
tell
says
me.
Honeydale
Oh,
overtime.
that's
no,
mechanical
no,
issue.
I don't know.
Right.
If they ever did it,
So that's why.
I didn't even see your last one.
I don't know, once we
Maybe,
get
maybe you wouldn't want to.
I think he's trying to quiet it down a bit.
It's not a
Okay,
business, it's a
but-
personal
Yeah.
thing.
So this is include,
But it's
I
an
guess years ago, they used
I
to,
would be if it was
there's an
raining.
astronomy.
so she used this first.
Once or twice a year.
still on
Count to more.
Yeah, we enjoyed the astronomy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like
That's
quite
okay.
often.
So you use this on this check,
Oh,
on
really?
this
Yeah, we
week,
made-
I guess I
yeah,
would say.
posting
Okay,
on-
got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
We go high out there.
Yeah.
And I can get with all of them. I just want to
Yeah,
make sure I'm
absolutely.
following.
It
Yeah.
might be, but we've got.
Every one of
it,
those.
so,
I don't remember.
Stuff, I don't know.
Hold on.
yeah, it might be, but.
So guys, I got 6 o'clock, let's get started. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approve agenda.
Changes or as printed?
As printed.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approved minutes of the June 3rd, June 20th, 2019 meetings.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 3rd and June 20th meetings.
I'll second
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approved May 8, 2019 warrants.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants for May 2019.
I'll second
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input.
I have it, on your, you should have a copy of some, things on handouts. One is the second notice to have my name, to have, the finance office, email me an agenda. I have not been getting one from the finance office. The other, just give me a second here. Guide to open meetings law, I've highlighted what you should probably be aware of, because it's been going by the wayside. I had a person contact me, they were concerned about tornado warnings and stuff and who they contact. And they talked to somebody in the city, I'm not sure who, and it was the police department. We do have a program called CERT, it's at the Union County level. They do the programs for Community Emergency Response Team, and that is shared with the police force, or at least it was. I was program leader back in 2010 and in that area. The other thing is that I believe we're still on the dispatch is the one that activates the sirens, or at least they were. So when you give information out, try to make sure it's accurate. And the last thing is, there was supposed to be a water report done on 3rd Street and Broad Street, and I was just checking to see if that was done and if that's complete, and I would like to look at it at some point to see what that came back as. They tested some water.
It's in the packet.
Okay. Okay, and I guess that's everything.
Okay.
Oh, the one other handout I neglected to write down on my note is having the camera on, and that gives you the statute that deals with that. So,
I
Okay.
have a question.
yes,
Your guide to South Dakota's open meeting laws says revised fall of 2015. Does that include the things that took effect today?
probably not.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Was there something that took effect today that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
open meeting laws changed.
I'll talk about it in a couple of updates.
Okay, second reading for the planning and zoning ordinance 2019-02.
I did not put that in your packet, so I guess I assume you had it. It's the same. It is the same, no changes.
Well, I make a motion that we approve the second reading of ordinance 2019-2.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Does that need to be read in its entirety?
It should be.
Oh,
Oh, we can. An ordinance.
just what's here in the
Yes.
agenda? Okay, motion to approve second reading of ordinance 2019-2, an ordinance of the city of Alcester, South Dakota, amending the 2018 revised Alcester zoning regulations by amending chapter 4.03 R, residential district, conditional uses, chapter 4.09 R, residential district, lot, area, yard, and height regulations, chapter 10.11, site-built, single-family detached, single-family attached, and multi-family dwelling standards, and chapter 19.02, definitions.
Thank you.
Who seconded that? Oh, thank
Linda.
you.
Does she need to second it again?
So you're, yeah, make that motion again.
I make a motion to approve that reading.
Okay.
And I will second that.
Second, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Legal updates, cemetery updates.
I handed you out just before the meeting, a draft copy of the ordinance that I think is a start for us to bring the cemetery under city control. I went back and forth, I'll just quick run through this for you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I went back and forth over whether or not to have a separate board. Right now, as you know, the cemetery is run by a separate board, vice making the council essentially the cemetery board. And I thought that the latter option of just making the council the board would be better, because there's gonna be enough expending of public funds that I think if you try to delegate that to a board or allow the board to do that, that's gonna be, a problem. I mean, you could give them a budget and they could do with it what they wanted, but if you gotta buy a new mower or something in the middle of a season, they'd have to come to you anyway. We certainly can have a board. Hot Springs has a city board, and I've looked into how it functions and they make it work, but I think they're one class of a municipality larger than we are. So I think that the additional kind of oversight piece of the council doing it is probably better, but we can change that. If you look at the section on the second page, it starts at the bottom of the first page and starts at the top of the second. A person called a sexton. We can also call him a superintendent, but that's basically the jack of all trades, cemetery manager, the role that Larry Anderson currently fills. So I said we're gonna hire him to do the general supervision of the cemetery. That can be full-time, part-time, or anywhere in between. Lists his duties, and then the council can hire folks at the discretion of the council to do additional things like that. What I envisioned was the folks that are currently on the association, some of them at least, would want to continue working in some form or fashion. Talks about the records, the way I found it done and the way I think would probably be best. Pat might disagree with me because it's one more thing on her list, but the sexton would maintain the plat book of who's buried where, etc. That copy and all the records that deal with the cemetery would be housed in the finance officer's office and maintained by the finance officer as the custodian of records. Perpetual care fund, so just real quick on that, there are kind of two types of cemeteries in the state of South Dakota. One is perpetual care, which is where a certain dollar amount is set aside. Basically, as a principal, you invest it or do whatever you can with it, and then the proceeds of that investment, the profit of it, goes to maintain the cemetery, but it's a chunk of change that you've always got. We do not have to have a perpetual care fund. Cities are allowed to, but they don't have to. So this is just language that I took from, I think it was Yankton. Yankton has a perpetual care fund and then a cemetery maintenance fund, which does the day-to-day operations. So you see in there under perpetual care, Yankton takes 33% off the top of whatever they get for a burial or whatever. They stick it in perpetual care, and then the rest goes into the cemetery maintenance fund. My read of the statute is if we do a perpetual care fund and we find it's not working out or making us enough money and it's just sitting there, you can nix that and put it all into the cemetery maintenance fund for the day-to-day operations. It's kind of choose your own adventure with that. So that's what I've gotten so far. You'll also see on the first page I was able to draft a legal description of what I believe the actual legal description of the current cemetery to be. Had Tom Freeberg look at it. He thought it looked good as well. If and when we do transfer this to the city, I would suggest that we just have somebody from a title insurance company or a surveyor go out and look at it. I think that'd be a good investment of whatever it costs to have somebody find the pins or whatever, just to make sure we're not grabbing a couple feet one way or the other of somebody else's land. But this is the draft ordinance. I can have a warranty deed. Well, I have a draft warranty deed ready, but I can have that done fairly quickly. Larry Anderson's given me a synopsis of all the assets of the cemetery, financial and otherwise. So it's just kind of when you're ready to bring it in, and we can the top, last thing, sorry I'm rambling, but the top thing I think that you know is important is all the regulations, bylaws, and fees continue in effect. So whatever they've got in terms of you can't bury someone on Memorial Day or Christmas Day or something, that all stays in effect unless and until you all change it. I do think it would be a good idea to put those specific rules in ordinance, but this adequately captures those. The last thing I would tell you is that the price list you see there is changeable by resolution, so that's an easier mechanism to adjust prices as needed, so you don't have to amend the whole ordinance.
Question,
Yes, sir.
is a third of all of those A, B, C, D, and E fees go into the perpetual care?
So you'll see that's a good question. You'll see the blank I had before, 33%. I think you could change it to a different percentage.
But I'm talking internment fee and
Yep.
monument placement fee.
Yep.
That's all goes in, okay.
Yep.
Then I have another question.
Yes.
In the description, legal description, what's the abbreviation PF stand for? West PF of 5th Prime Meridian.
That is,
West of, it's supposed to say of.
yeah, it's supposed to say, oh, that's a typo. Good catch.
There's one in the next paragraph too.
Good thing it says draft now. Any other questions on this or thoughts or comments?
Do they have a perpetual care fund now?
I don't think.
That's what I thought they
Okay,
did.
It's
Do you know
in a-
what, do they put a percentage in there? No, okay.
We have a CD, and that money is in there, and it just keeps getting reinvested and reinvested. And then, and we've never touched it since this generation has taken control. We also have the internment fees, we don't add to it either, but we currently use the money from plot sales and the monument placement fees to run the day-to-day operations.
Okay.
And that, my understanding from you and Larry is that cash flows currently, right?
Correct.
That's- We're making a little money, not a lot of money, but we're not losing money.
Not losing it.
And are these the same fees that are charged right now then?
Correct.
Yep, I took those all from Larry.
And Sam, and you're looking through stuff like this, are those fees reasonable compared to what you've seen in other communities, or are we too low?
I think we might be a little higher than some places, little lower in others.
In the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're in the ballpark, and my understanding is people are paying them.
When we first started, it was $200
Yeah,
for a lot.
when I talked to
So
Larry,
it's changed a lot.
I looked at Hot Springs and Yankton primarily, because they were the two that had municipal cemeteries. And I'm shooting from the hip on this, but I think we're lower than Yankton, and about on par, maybe a little higher in some areas than Hot Springs. But yeah, when I talked to Larry, he said for the longest time, they were giving you a spot for a song. So.
Yeah.
I talked with Larry quite a while ago, within the last 2 years, and yeah, it wasn't enough, but yeah.
But if what we have for fees now is doing the cash flow,
So financial status right now is in good shape, is that correct? Of the
Yeah.
cemetery?
I mean, I wanna say that like net assets, they have somewhere between 65 and
I was gonna say
$75,000.
60,000.
Yeah, and it's covering what they need to do to run it, and then, you know, a little bit's going in the bank.
We haven't had to we have more than one CD, we have like 5 CDs, and we haven't had to take any of the money from the CDs. Whatever is in the checking account has maintained and grown in the last few years.
Or, one other question I have, you have a deal on here where either the city council could control all this or else hire like a manager to do it. Do most of the other cemeteries, are they hiring a manager, or are they letting the committee do it, or how are they handling that?
So, Hot Springs has a superintendent that reports to the head, I'm conflating the two, or I might anyway. One of them has a sexton, one of them has a superintendent, same thing. I think Yankton's guy reports to the Parks Department, and the city manager of Yankton is the day-to-day person who has cognizance over it, who then kind of delegates to the Parks Department / the sexton. Hot Springs' cemetery is controlled by the board, the cemetery board, and I think they hire and fire that individual. I don't know that for the class of municipality and form of government we have, I don't know that we can delegate hire and fire authority to a board, which is kind of why I thought the council best be the board. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah.
But yeah, they've got a person that does the day-to-day.
Yeah.
So about how many hours a week does it take to run a cemetery? Like what kind of person do we need to hire? Is this a part-time person, full-time, is it several people?
You're gonna need, currently we have 4 people that mow and 1 person that weed eats. 3 of the people are retired, so they can mow when the weather allows you to mow. There are 2 times when the cemetery is super crucial that it looks its best, and that is Memorial Day and 4th of July. I mean, you have to work really hard to make it look good for Memorial Day because oftentimes it's either wet or really crappy conditions, so that window of mowing is pretty small. That's probably been the same amount of staff we've had ever since I can remember.
How often do they mow? Just is it as needed, or do they have a schedule? Or?
In the spring, it's at minimum once a week. If it's a normal year, by the time late July and early August, you might be mowing once a month.
Well, what about for somebody to manage it? I mean,
Yeah,
without-
that's what I was
without-
talking about, not just grounds crews.
Oh, sorry.
Without, we're
You
not
know-
talking about the people that mowing and stuff, just somebody that can manage the books and that type of thing. How many hours a week are we talking about?
That is as needed because you don't know when someone's going to pass away. And so if they already have a plot purchased and maybe even the headstone on there, it would not take very much time at all. The family will just come in and get the deed if they don't have the deed and you know, perform the burial. If someone passes away and they don't have a plot, that's where it would take a little bit longer because they'd have to go pick out the plot that they want and then do that paperwork. So I would say if someone did not have a plot, it would probably take 2 hours. Because you would typically go with the family and say, this, you know, where would you like to be and is this spot available?
So, do you think that a person, if you, 10 hours a week, you know, throughout the year, would that be enough time on the average to, I'm trying to think how much.
Can we
I know it's
we were
pretty
talking
hard.
about hiring someone to do other tasks too, so
Well,
can we?
you're looking at
can we
12 to
consolidate
16
this?
burials per
A
year.
year,
out
yeah,
there.
it's not
That's
that
all you're
very
looking at.
many.
No.
We don't need a full-time person
No,
for 12
no,
to 16
definitely.
burials a year.
And, you know, it just depends. If a person already has their plot, like I said, it's not gonna take much time. This person would just communicate with the funeral home and the grave digger and let them know.
But if we had a manager that was working just a few hours a week and could handle the bookwork part of it, and then go out there and say, contact whoever and say, you know, we're in need of the cemetery being mowed or whatever. If you had like a manager that, to do just things like that, not actually go out there and mow themselves, but just kind of manage the thing.
And you
That's what
never-
I'm looking at.
You never know when someone's going to pass away, so, and in the wintertime, it's gonna take extra time because, marking or finding the stone, or finding the grave would be a little bit more in depth.
So this person that we were going to hire to be like the runner for the golf course and the pool, is this something that we could consolidate those positions and find one person to do all that and give them not just the title of cemetery sexton, but maybe like a parks and rec superintendent?
Possibly, you know, I don't know.
And then does that money come out of the cemetery fund? Like currently, the people who mow, are they volunteering or are they
No,
getting paid?
they get paid.
They get paid, okay.
Mhm. Yep, everyone who works out there gets paid with the exception of when we have a work day and we pick up branches or,
When we pay the chief, does that come out of his budget, or is that like, how is that
Nope,
done?
that's out of police.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we would do a budget for the cemetery.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a number of, that's kind of what I'd envision too, is that all the cemetery minions are paid out of the cemetery maintenance fund, which is, the funds for that are generated from the sale of plots.
I think you could go into the first year budgeting X amount of dollars for cemetery management. And,
We have all the financial records dating back, so I mean, I know how much is being spent on salaries and that kind of stuff. So now Larry currently does not turn in his time when he meets with the family. So that would be something that would be different. But if we budgeted 2 hours a time, 12 to 15 deaths a year, I think you get it pretty close.
So
Okay.
none of this deals with the funeral home, this is all separate.
This is all separate.
All separate.
This job would entail finding the plot, marking the plot, or selling the plot if it's not sold, and then contacting the
Okay, that's all separate from the funeral.
And the first thing, in my opinion, that we need to do is get the ordinance passed, except taking this into the city, under the city control. And then we can deal with
the
hiring
details.
somebody.
Okay. All right,
We're not quite ready to have the first reading for that.
not yet.
Well, I don't think this document is complete.
No, I mean, it's got the bare bones essentials of what I feel like we need, and like on the third page, perpetual care, it is a draft in the sense that that's an option. If you guys decide we don't need a perpetual care fund, we don't need one. We can make it go away a week after we create it if we really want to. It's an option that works for one city and another city don't have it. But all the rules that are currently in place are carried over unless and until you want to change them. We can lay them out in ordinance, we can do anything we want, but all this is what I think we need to get started. And then we can.
So if we looked at what was brought in a year's time, and what is at the beginning of the year, the balance in the account, at the end of the year, and see if it grew, then we would know how much we maybe could put into a perpetual care fund, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
I can have Deb use, she's the treasurer right now, I can have her give you a 3 or 5 year.
Yeah, that's
history.
probably be good, you know, 'cause
Yeah.
we don't want it, 33% is probably gonna be a little high.
And Dave,
But
I
we
think the other, yeah, we can change all those prices by resolution, and I think if we wanna list out specific rules, that we have, which I understand that Larry has times that he does and doesn't bury people, but that's, like, I don't have that in the document, is that right? Like, I mean, you can't bury somebody on Christmas Day, right? That's a,
I was not aware
okay.
of any of those.
Well, if we don't, I was under the impression we had certain, you know, like, we can't put my headstone out there with flashing lights and sirens and, you know.
There are a few restrictions that Larry has strongly recommended.
Okay.
But as far as a particular day of the week that is not available, I do not believe that
Okay.
exists.
So that's why I said that whatever restrictions we've got, they're incorporated, but if you folks feel like we need a more exhaustive list, we can easily put that in there and again, make it amendable by resolution if we forgot something, but I mean,
I think the thing that should be included in this document is possibly the current rules.
okay. And you guys have those?
But yes, Larry does.
Okay. Yeah, I
I
mean,
think I'd like to see those in the ordinance too.
Yeah. And if we're gonna hire a sexton, I would like to see that or documented too, that, you know, right now it's either or, maybe, yeah, we need to say yes or
Yes or
no.
no? Yeah. I agree.
And I believe that is a great idea to hire one person to be in that position. Of course, you gotta find them first, but, you know, it's a position that probably isn't gonna require more than 50 hours in a year's time to fulfill.
unless they wanna help them out, certainly.
And I know there's people out there that have commented about that. Gosh, all I had to do was come out here and mow, I'd love to do this, you know, instead of all the paperwork and stuff. Well, Larry, he wouldn't
Yeah.
mind mowing if he didn't have to dink around and do all the other stuff. Because mowing is,
So you want specific, what you can and can't do's in there, and then, change it so we're gonna hire a sexton with the, basically with the role that we've set out for him or her, right here.
well, if Deb provides us with 3 to 5 years records, we can see what's being spent on that position, basically that position right now.
Okay. All right.
But the one exception is Larry doesn't charge for his time he spends
I know
with
this.
me. So that's
So
one.
that would be another 30 maybe hours a year.
Correct.
He's gonna lose a fair amount of hours though dealing with the tax exempt IRS forms. I mean, isn't that a lot of what's causing him angst, is he's gotta just.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the warranty deed and the transfer of all the assets can be ready, by August 1 if you wanna do it then, and I can get an advance.
So if we're gonna be the board,
Mhm.
what about people like Deb that's been doing this, then can she continue to do these things? Because some of these people said they would like to continue till we got, you know, for a while, like, didn't she, Deb say? And Todd,
Deb's role, once it becomes into the city.
she will be done then.
Yes, because we'll do payroll.
Then you will have to
in-house,
do it all.
And we'll have to, we'll just do our not sales tax filings, but payroll filings at the time we do our
Okay.
normal payroll.
So then she won't have to do anything, but then will they still be able to help us?
Yes, so if
Okay.
you look on the second page,
Okay.
duties of the sexton, and we can put a separate section in there too, but starting in the second sentence, maintenance of cemetery assets, equipment, and supervision of additional personnel hired at the council's discretion to assist with maintenance, and then when we look at maintenance fund, the fund shall be used for the operating expenses of the cemetery, including the payment of sexton and additional employees, so it's, I look at it the same way you do the
Okay.
pool or the
Okay.
golf course, if we need. And that's
They
kind
know-
of,
They know more about this than we do, and their help would be,
well, that's kind of what I thought too, is that, my understanding, they're getting paid to do this anyway, right? I mean, when they go out and mow, they get paid?
That is correct.
So the folks that are doing this, if they want to help
but the
keep
other
records
people, they're
of
just
mow.
volunteering their hours, like,
Well, we have, the board members volunteer.
yes,
Board
yeah,
members are not paid.
right, okay,
We have 4 people that mow and then lady.
okay.
The one thing I don't know anything about, and it makes me nervous, is just, we gotta have, Canton has an issue where they've got stuff, there's 1 body's in 3 places and 3 bodies are in 1 place and nobody knows, and they just handed one of my friends the pile and said, you're the sexton now, so good luck. And we don't wanna do that stuff.
Well, and Larry has been working on that, and I think he will continue to do that, because the records go back into the late 1800s. And some of that gets a little sketchy in some of those areas. So, like lots were sold, but nobody came to bring their loved one here when they died, maybe they moved somewhere else, and so.
Do you know how much extra work this is going to take your office?
It depends what is going to be asked of our office. If you have the sexton, probably not a lot, but if, it depends what you want the duties of that person to be.
So the way that it's written right now,
If
with-
I understand the duties of the sexton, it really would just be payroll and reports.
so not a lot.
You talking for you or the sexton?
Mhm. For
Okay,
me.
yeah, I thought, the way I set it up is the sexton knows where the bodies are, knows when things need to be mowed, all that kind of stuff. The money flows through the finance office, which.
We would print the deeds.
Right, yep. And the sexton, I think, everything stays here with the city, but the sexton's responsible for the book of who's who in the zoo and the, you know.
So they would be the contact person when someone passes away.
We tried to not increase the load on the finance office. Any more on that, or should we talk about cats?
Well, I think we need to start talking about cats.
Okay. So the last I had with the cats before we got into a number of other matters on behalf of the city was the chief, I, and the finance officer had been on an email list with the president of the Humane Society of Sioux Falls, who had told us, as I recall, that they could handle stray cats and euthanize them if they met certain criteria, which it sounded like a lot of the cats that we would have here would meet. And we talked about how our law enforcement would transfer the cats up to their facility. I said, great, get me a contract. She sent us a contract that was a standard form contract that, you know, did some great things, but the stuff that it did that I didn't think was appropriate was it made the Sioux Falls Humane Society, as I read the contract, made them our animal control people, and gave them the authority to do animal control stuff in town that I don't think, one, they're great people, but one, I don't think we want to cede that authority to them, and two, you know, I don't know that it's a good idea to delegate that authority to them when our law enforcement folks already have it, and we could potentially have a conflict for who's in charge. So I contacted this person back. I said, you know, these are the things that we would like to have different in the contract or not there. What do you think? And that was the last I heard from her. So she was in communication with us. It took her a little while to get back to us when we were talking, just because I think she's pretty busy. But that's the last of where we were at. So we know that they do services where they take in stray and feral animals. They were willing to discuss with us a financial and contractual relationship to do that, and that's where we're at on it. I just wasn't comfortable saying they're the animal enforcement people here.
So what was the deal with, like, 10, 15 years ago, council dealt with the same issue, and they came to the conclusion police will round up the cats, take them to the Humane Society? Was that never, like, really an official thing?
I'd have to go back and look. I know that was done. I know it was discussed, and somebody probably passed a resolution whether or not anybody contracted with the Humane Society. I don't think they did. I don't think there's anything stopping the chief if he catches a stray cat right here and now, taking it up there. I think it, and you might have been involved in this too, but I think at one point there was a number that was like $10 a cat or $15 a cat or something.
For licensing?
For
Disposal.
taking in their disposal, spaying, neutering, rehoming, whatever they're gonna do with it, that's what it cost us. And then we had to provide our own traps and transport.
Right.
And they had a list, the other thing they had was a list of criteria that, you know, I wasn't certain we would be able to meet, like, you couldn't have a trap out if you weren't gonna be able to take the cat up there live, which I get, but I don't, you know, we're gonna need to set I've seen them, we're gonna need to set our traps out all the time.
Looks to me like if we could eliminate section 1, which puts the society and gives them the responsibility of being basically our animal control people. The rest of that's probably all right,
Mm-hmm.
at least to me.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't know the obligations of the city shall pay $43 per hour plus mileage. I think we can make other arrangements locally to get the animals there.
I don't understand which way it is. Is it that they come down here and do it? Because on the first page it says that we do it ourselves. We set the traps, we check the traps.
Right.
If we find them, we take them up there.
Yeah.
I don't see anything where it says that they actually come down here.
I think that's if the animal is impounded.
Yeah, and that's the,
So that would be a stray dog. Or,
yeah, and that's the part that I had tried to make clear to where I wasn't interested in. We got our own folks to handle cats, dogs, and horses and all the other stuff that people own that are licensed. All we want is assistance with relocation of these feral animals.
Right now, they go to Hayward, is that?
So currently, if we have a stray dog that we can't find an owner for, I don't know that we're under contract or anything, Sam, but we kind of have a gentleman's agreement with the vet in Hayward. He takes the dog, if he houses it for more than 10 days, he tries to rehome it himself. If it's something that can't be rehomed or it's aggressive, he'll put the animal down at the end of a certain amount of time. Where we kind of have the contract is we're stuck with the bill if he doesn't rehome the animal and he can't find the owner himself, we're stuck with some cost to house it and to put it down. But I've never spoken with him about cats, but maybe, you know, he's 7 miles versus 50, maybe I could talk to him about that. It'd be a lot quicker trip and keep our law enforcement in the area.
Especially if he's willing to do it without actually having to sign a contract. Where
Yeah,
it's
like-
kind of just-
And the cool part is, like, if I get a stray dog right now, he actually has a facility where I can get into 24 hours a day right now. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is 7 miles versus 50. I don't know.
Well,
I'm kind of coming in late on the game on that.
well, no, I think it'd be great if we could get an agreement with him, with or without a contract. I mean, you know, the other thing that I didn't like about this is on the first page, it said this is good for a period of 3 months, you know, of 90 days, so I feel like we're gonna need something longer than that, given the size of our problem. And the other thing that I think you could make an argument either way, but that I didn't like with this is, you know, if we're bringing in 5 feral cats, I get that you don't, you know, they're living animals and you gotta ethically take care of them, but I don't think the city needs to be paying to give these things shots and deworming and all that other stuff. You know, I mean, that's a waste of our money, their time and their effort. You know, that's, and I'm, you know, it says here that the animal control officers, they attempt to give emergency treatment to all injured animals found by animal control officers, you know, I mean, that could be every one of these cats we bring in. So,
Yeah, if they're gonna keep them for 10 days and euthanize them, maybe they don't need $40 worth of shots.
right, yep.
So would you prefer that we just check in with this guy in Hayward and try to come up with something with him instead of doing the Humane Society?
I don't know if he'd be open to it, but I could check with him tomorrow and see what his thoughts are. But I would prefer that, so I'm not sending myself or my officer to Sioux Falls. But
So could someone volunteer to take 3 to 5 feral cats in their traps to the Humane Society in Sioux
Now, what
Falls?
if it has rabies or bites you or scratches you and you're not a city employee and, I mean, is that kind of a sketchy area?
Could sign a waiver, but I'm with
As a
you.
volunteer. So if something did happen.
Well, I like Jeff's idea.
Yeah, look into that first.
You check it out and see what, let's check that out before we.
okay,
And if we're going to be doing that, then do we need to have the licensing fee for the cats too? I mean, there's gotta be a way to set aside the feral cats from the pet cats, I mean, otherwise he might be accidentally pick up somebody's Fluffy and Fluffy gets euthanized and it wasn't a stray after all. At least if we give people the opportunity to buy these tags and protect their cat from this, and to help offset the cost. What's that?
And if it didn't have a tag on, well then,
Then it's a feral cat.
yeah.
I do know some pets do run, ours do not. Yeah, there are pets that, they let them out.
Oh, I know there was a dog swimming in a baby pool the other day, and it was somebody's dog. I know whose it was. I mean, it just happened.
wouldn't our animal at large city ordinance, I mean, an animal at large in the town, wouldn't we kind of be good on that?
Is it animal or is it dog? I can't remember the language of the.
I think it's animal.
Well, I guess,
If their animal isn't reported to me that it's missing and I find it at large, well, it's just so much easier on a dog to tell if it's a stray or not. Cats are, you get a cat in a cage, it's a different animal. It's tougher to tell. So I see what you're saying.
I'm seeing too, because we go to the veterinary warden, I don't think he has room for tons of cats. So there might have to be a
He may,
4-week, or there might be a limit.
Yeah.
he may not be interested, but I can
Yeah.
certainly bring it up with him.
Yeah.
He's honestly really good to deal with on our dog situation, so.
Good guy.
The ordinances are animal.
So with that being said, animal at large, if I find an animal at large, Sam, and it's not been reported missing or, you know, then it's just an animal at large and I deal with it as such. Now, if somebody comes up to me and I am missing a cat, okay, well, here's your cat back and here's your animal at large ticket. I wish you would've got to me sooner, but it's at the vet. And that's happened with the dog. I've taken the dog over to the vet, don't know who the owner is, animal at large, here's the dog.
In your conversation with Dick, ask him if he can read chips.
He can, but it depends on the brand. We've had that conversation. He's been able to see that some chips are in dogs, but depending on the brand, he can't read them or can read them. So sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't.
Well, I guess we give people notice that they have the opportunity to license or chip their cats. And if they want to take advantage of that opportunity, then the cat is registered or licensed, has a tag, otherwise it's a feral cat.
Yeah.
So one question regarding licensing a cat, does that also mean we need proof of rabies?
I would think the
They would need
same
a
criteria
shot
as dogs.
to get the license. But if we put a notice out that this is gonna happen, and they need to have their animal, a license on it, or, you know, shots, make sure that it has a collar, it's gonna be running outside with a tag on it, so that our police chief can tell whether that's somebody's cat or just a stray. And then from then on, that's, if they don't wanna do that, well then I guess they could lose their cat.
I know people do it, but they let their cats out, you know, versus a dog, but we do have an ordinance against that, so, you know. It just makes it easier for me to give them their cat back with a ticket if it's licensed with a tag on it. Then it doesn't go to the vet, I can bring it home and give you your $20 ticket. But, you know, it's just.
So if we would make a rule that cats have to be licensed at the city, have rabies shot, and be licensed here,
And spayed and
then
neutered, do we
how
have to spay
much
and
time
neuter?
do we have to give them? I mean, you can't just say,
We can
well,
start it next year.
yeah, it's gotta be, we gotta give,
Time.
you know, 6 months or something. Because some people's cat isn't due for rabies shots for a
Well,
year,
but if
you
they
might
can,
say.
they can
Of
prove
course,
that
they
they
could
got,
get, they
yeah.
could get the, now they should have, if they've had the rabies
If they've
shots,
had them,
they'd
they'll
have
have
a receipt for that, so.
It's just the other thing is too, this, just watching what Pat and Wanda went through with the dogs, like, it does put a lot of stuff on them. You know, I
Well,
can't,
and it's very hard to police because
Cats are gonna be very hard. I mean, there's
Yeah.
cats all over in our yard, and I know they're pets, some of them.
And a dog will have to go outside at some point in time. A property owner could say, oh, I don't have any cats. Yeah.
and if they
And if they
don't,
don't go
You can do-
outside, what's the
Then we
difference?
won't,
Right.
it won't matter,
But then
because
if
then they
the
won't
tag
get
gets
loose.
caught, sorry.
Yeah.
You're gonna get tagged.
That's right.
All right.
Are we doing just the rabies vaccine or spayed and neuter too, like with the dogs? Or do we
We
wanna
don't
make that,
care if they're spayed or neutered.
No,
do we wanna
I don't
make
think
that
that,
a thing?
I
or-
don't think we require that.
no, I don't think we can.
Can't.
Well, I'm just saying, like, to help, cause the problem right now is, you know, one cat, one female cat, like, I'm looking at your graph there,
Mhm.
you know, at least if they get fixed, that
Well,
should help over time, that should help the problem.
But if Fluffy is a prize cat,
That's right.
ought to have kittens,
People breed cats.
They do.
absolutely.
I think the main thing is the rabies shot and the license.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I
vaccinations
agree.
and life.
The cities that I've looked at have two separate prices for if your dog or cat is spayed or neutered. So if your cat or dog is not fixed, then your licensing fee is higher.
More
Helps.
confusion, but I understand.
Yeah.
Well, and once that, the cat is fixed, their personality changes. It's a better cat.
But then they're all gonna be spayed or neutered when they come to licensing, if it's cheaper.
Well, they would have to show the proof.
Yeah. We
They have to ask for proof.
We contact the vet.
To make sure.
I just think in the long run, it would help get that number down if we do that.
Except the biggest share of them that are not fixed are going to be the ones that are running loose, yeah.
But those are the ones that we're gonna scoop up.
Right.
So if we
so-
scoop up the ferals
right,
and then the
so
other
I-
ones aren't reproducing,
That's right.
that should eventually, I mean, it might take a couple years, but eventually
So
that
what are you
number
talking
should come
like?
down.
If it's been spayed or neutered, it's a $5 license, and if it
Yeah,
hasn't, it's a 10? Is that
Sioux
what
Falls is like 20 if you're not spayed or neutered, and then 10 if they are, something like that.
And our dogs are 10 right now. And we don't care if they're fixed or not fixed. We just want babies.
How do people find out, this is just a question I'm asking, and if they have an animal that it needs to be licensed, how do they know that?
Well, with dogs, again, it's easier to identify with because if Wanda's reading meters and she hears a bark, or sees evidence of a dog, then
Well,
we contact
My
the
question
owner.
was, I was talking one day with somebody in town, and she said, well, I didn't even know you had to have to license your dog.
When you come in for your water service,
Water, you know?
we have that right on the sheet. Are you a dog owner?
Okay,
And then also, like on the first of the end of December billing or whatever, I write on there, 2019 dog licenses are due.
because I thought, because she acted like, I don't even know.
Now, the
Yes.
people who live in apartments don't come to see us because they don't have
They
water
don't have
bills.
water.
But I also gave Dennis and Robin a note to give to all, or to post in all the apartments that all dogs
There
need
is
to
a
be licensed.
thing. Okay, so then there's.
And when we get a city website, it can be on there too.
Right.
Okay, so do we want to act on this tonight, or how do you want to handle it? We need to
No,
go.
I don't think
We
we
gotta
should.
wait.
We're gonna
We've
check
gotta-
with Wesley
we've gotta
Vet,
discuss
don't we?
things with the
Yeah.
guy over
Okay, all right.
at Hayward.
And the good part is, I think for the time being, we're covered under this animal at large ordinance. So
Okay.
if I get some cats that are animals at large, I can lock them up and take them to the vet if he'll take them. If not, we'll go Sam Job with Humane Society.
See what Dick says over there, and
And then,
we'll go from there.
okay.
All right, we'll check on this again next meeting. Okay, update on nuisance letter.
Okay, so in your packet, a copy of, well, not a copy of the letters, but at least you will know, it's something that looks like this. Yep. That is the addresses of all the people that received letters, the types of violations that they had, both the numbers and the description, and then where we are with it, our method of delivery. I have our follow-up dates. Now, there's a couple that I am waiting for some legal update on.
Where are those,
509 Union Street.
which is,
Haas.
okay, Haas hasn't been done yet.
Or, no, I'm sorry, Paulson's.
Paulson's.
Paulson's trailer.
Okay.
And
They're
then,
next on my list,
and then 210 Offset.
which is, oh, keys are. Yeah, so I had talked with, Paul Noyd has said he's gonna permit inspection. I talked to Kezar, he said he's not permit inspection, so we're gonna apply for an inspection warrant.
Paul Noyd said he would allow.
He
it.
would, yes. he originally wanted to do it after Labor Day because it was the earliest time he could get us in.
Labor Day?
I said, we're gonna need to do it before July 16th. And then he said, okay, so, but no, we'll be applying for an inspection warrant, for Kezar. He's had letters going back to what, 2015?
So how long will it take to get all that going?
So Fillingsness has to come see me, our code enforcement guy has to come see me, and he has to sign and file an affidavit, which is just basically a sworn, here's a list of all the problems that I've encountered, here's the letters we've sent him, or I've sent him letters on these dates, and then we sent Kezar a letter requesting, under the statute, you have to request permission to inspect, and they have to deny it. He's called and told me he's not going to prevent it, which is fine. And he's asked that I give him copies of the statute that show how we can do this, which I will send to him. But then we send this affidavit from Jeff with a request for the inspection warrant to the magistrate judge. He or she looks at it, eventually they just let you do it.
So Mike's not going to deny it, so why doesn't he just let you do it then? Rather than go through the court proceedings?
That's his
You know?
right, you know, and it's, I mean,
It seems like a waste of everyone's time.
you know, he was very pleasant when he talked to me on the phone, and you know, he kind of said, I'm not sure what the problem was, and I just said, I got a stack of letters this thick that they've sent you, so.
There's 3 we're waiting on legal. The last one is 307 Iowa Street.
How was that? What, refresh my memory, what's his problem?
Expired building permit.
Okay, yeah. That's another one I have to get on. So Howie and Paulson, or whoever that other one is.
So the question that Jeff Billingsness had for the city council, some of the properties, we put an approximate estimate of cleanup that the city would be responsible for if you want to follow through with, say, we exhaust our efforts with having the property owner do it, and so then we say, all right, then we are going to hire a company to come in and do these things. And so this is Jeff's best estimate of what the cleanup cost would be, and he wanted the council to be aware of this and to see if you are comfortable moving forward. These costs would be, after they're done, assessed to the property taxes. So if the property taxes are paid, we would get paid first, and then the taxes will get paid. If they're not paid, it would come back to the city when the property is sold.
So if we don't follow through with this, then why do it?
Exactly. But
You
just
have to.
wanted the council to be aware.
So what do we do? Just send them a letter saying, okay, there'll be a crew there 2 weeks from Friday?
Yep.
Did-
And when that crew arrives, law enforcement and Jeff will be there. And the crew will come in and do what they need to do. And then the expense will be assessed back to the property owner.
They can't pay it. Could they come and write a check for it?
I suppose they could.
So we didn't give them a deadline right now. We haven't given them any deadlines?
Well, I have the follow-up dates indicated for you.
So when you say follow-up, what does follow-up mean?
Well, we will go back and reassess. They've all received a letter saying this is where the problem is. And if they don't address it by that follow-up date or make some communication with us before that follow-up date, then at that point, it's our decision or your guys' decision to do something about it.
So we give them about a month then, and then we'll send them another letter. And then give them.
Or do we
not a
act,
month?
or do
And
we
then-
act at that time?
That's what I'm wondering.
Or we
How
can,
you keep putting, letting these people get by with it, and then they think, well, they're never gonna do anything.
right, exactly. No, I think, we have a company in Sioux Falls that we could hire to come in and do what we need to have done. So if you guys are willing to put the money into it, that would be the avenue to go.
Where would that money come from?
Well, it was not in the budget. I had some money in there, but not this kind of money in there. So at this point, it would have to come out of 7 penny. And then we get reimbursed either at the time the property taxes are paid, or if the property is sold, then, you know, it could go back to the fund.
Because this assessment goes, or comes before property taxes, doesn't it?
Correct.
So if they're gonna pay their taxes, they're gonna pay this assessment.
Correct. And Union County doesn't give them a choice on that. Assessments are paid first.
So in our letter to them, what did it tell them?
We visited your property on this date, and these are the things that need to be addressed. We will visit your property again in 30 days. And then 30 days, or 14 days
So
is a
it
lot of
didn't say then that we were coming in to do anything in 30 days, though. So
No.
do we have to give them another notice?
And I didn't ask Jeff that exact question, but I'm sure he would probably, and we'd have to schedule it with the company, so that would probably be their time frame.
Well, I think at the follow-up date here, that they be given notice that we will be cleaning the property up. If we can give that notice at that time, because they've ignored us up till now.
Right.
Correct?
And that we will be scheduling the cleanup, and we will notify you as to the date, and go forward from there, and just do this.
We've been fooling with this thing now for
5 years.
5 years,
Yeah.
trying to get some of these properties cleaned up. It's time to get it done.
Interior or exterior?
This is all exterior except for, most of the, I let Jeff Fillings handle most of this stuff, this exterior nuisance stuff. If there's a potential risk or hazard that violates building code or a safety concern or something, that's what the inspection warrant would be for.
Okay.
So, the trailer, what's that trailer, the one that, Alcester, is that the guy with the space heaters under it?
No,
No,
that's
it's-
I'm conflating names, but there was some dude at one point that had space heaters they thought underneath his house to keep the pipes from freezing. That's something we gotta send somebody to look in, so that, you know, that's
How about,
dangerous.
have we given any to the trailer park? Up there, any notices? Says there's some bad ones up there.
These have been our problem children for many years, and so.
So these are just habitual ones?
Yes, these would be the first ones to attack.
And then maybe a letter will work with the other ones, because they'll realize that we actually mean
The
business.
trailer court will be a little bit different duck though, because the trailer court is owned by one individual.
Yeah, I thought that.
And so that's not gonna go to those individual trailer people, that's gonna go to
To
that
the
one
owner.
individual.
Okay,
So that'll be a lot easier
yeah.
than dealing
Hope
with,
so.
Same guy that's owned it for years and years.
yes. So anyway, that's where we are with
Okay.
this. And it works out nice that our date is July 9th, because that is the day of the inspection as well. So the same time, once that inspection is complete, then we'll go around and address the other properties.
Section what you're referring
Oh, no, I,
to. Okay. That's when Jeff's gonna be, that's right, that's when they agreed.
Jeff and Jeff.
There you go.
Well, I guess I'm a little bit, I was CC'd on this email chain too, so I remember reading through it. We're talking inside the house inspection?
Yes.
Okay, but what code violation would we have on the inside of the house?
He's got,
Or is this a Fillings nest thing?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that is, his specific violations are of the International Property Maintenance Code. Some of them are interior, suspected to be interior, so if you suspect that there's interior violations, you have to say, hey, can I come in and look at this? If they say no, you do the affidavit, and if, kinda like an affidavit for a search warrant. If
Sure.
you meet a probable cause deal, you get to come into my house if the
Right.
magistrate says so. So that's why we have to do the inspection warrant.
And this
We never
prop-
got there because he said, yeah, you can come and look, so.
This property also violates because, the ordinance, because there's no running water to the property.
But that's not a code violation, right?
It does say you have to have running water in your property. If you are living in a house, you
Okay.
have to have running water.
I know as a deputy, there was a county health, like a county health inspector.
Yep.
And when law enforcement would get a tip or a call that this person's doesn't have adequate means for health and safety and stuff, we could get them involved as well, but this was reported differently. This is coming from our code inspector. I was just wrapping my mind around it too, so. It just scares me when we're going inside a house.
Yep, and it,
But then, the house you're referring to, Jeff, was that an acreage out in the country, not subject to city ordinances?
Right, yeah, and that would be as a deputy.
And
So
then-
that, I would have nothing to do with the town at that point,
but yeah, no,
so maybe that's,
it scares me too, and the other side of the coin that I live on a lot.
yeah,
That's opposite from you, I get real worked up about it, but that's why we have this warrant,
okay,
like and we couldn't, if he told us no, we'd have to go apply for the warrant, Jeff would have to fill out an affidavit, and if the judge, and, in this case, Mr. Noyd would have an opportunity to say, things A, B, and C that Fillings has said aren't true, here's some pictures, and if the magistrate judge said, I think you're right, we have to go pound sand.
so we still have to apply for the warrant.
Yep, yeah.
And the judge could say no,
Yeah,
just like a
absolutely.
search warrant.
Absolutely, yep.
So if the city shut the water off from non-payment, that's their end to get into somebody's
Okay.
house
No,
because they don't
Okay.
have running water?
no, that is not, in this particular case, no.
Here we go again. Okay,
It's time to move, get
Yes.
some things cleaned up.
yeah,
Let's give notice to these people on this follow-up date that we are coming in to clean their property. Can we? Should we?
I'm assuming it'll be a notice in order, which is what we've done in the past, and in that notice in order, it is saying on such and such a date.
We will be in to clean your property.
Can we contact the cleaning company in Sioux Falls to
Sure.
find out what dates they would be available?
Yes,
I mean, sometime after July 9th, maybe in a couple weeks after that?
yeah.
Do we need a special meeting then to make the motion on number 9 if we try to coordinate a date with our cleanup company?
If it's acceptable with you, then I would just schedule it after our August meeting, and then you could have a cost. Or do you want to have it before then?
August meeting will be the 5th or the 6th.
I think don't we wanna get it done before then we give them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you don't want a special meeting, the properties that I have cleanup costs associated with, I wouldn't know a cost on 204 Ofsted. 505 Ofsted is just a request. 211 Broad is, we could put a cost with that, it's cleaning up and
Right in the
mowing
corner?
and picking up.
Just a quick comment, I don't think there's anything wrong with, finance officer getting a quote, based off what we have now and you folks voting on spending up to a certain dollar amount for cleanups at the August meeting, and I say that just because then you give these offenders that much additional time. I know they've had 5 years, but you're giving them.
What's another
Specific
month?
amount.
yeah.
Is there a statute on this that says the actual process you have to follow in order to actually go onto somebody's property and take something or do something?
Yes,
Yes.
and that is that is what we have done with the property that we have the inspection scheduled for.
Yes, there's state statute about this, which you have to follow, if you believe it violates the city ordinance. These are all ordinance violations which are based on a violation of the International Property Maintenance Code, which has been blessed by state statute for you can use this as a way to regulate properties in your municipality. So the authority we have here devolves from state statute into the ordinance, and then if they fail to follow the ordinance, you can.
I would be in favor of making a motion to set a spending limit right now. In fact, I would make a motion that we authorize or approve spending up to $12,000 to get started on this process.
I will second David's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Sam, is this the part that you recommended that we wait on?
It is, but you don't have to.
I know we don't have to listen.
Yeah, no, well, you don't have to, I mean, you've got it in the bank and you know.
Well,
you
we're
can-
only setting a spending limit right now.
Right, yeah, you can choose when you wanna spend it.
We
so
don't
that
have to
happens just
spend
as
it,
well.
we're just setting a limit on what we can spend. Up to $12,000. So we have a motion, did we get a second?
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
But okay, then in the August meeting, we are gonna discuss putting out the notices that says, here we come.
Actually, I have a feeling they will go out ahead of that August meeting.
Okay,
I think notices will be generated after July 9th. And I'm assuming it'll be a notice in order, which is more of a legal document than just our nice little letter that we sent.
Okay. Curb and gutter discussion.
The reason I put this on the agenda is, starting back in April, Mrs. Larsen filed a complaint with the city, her own complaint form, but not the city's form. And at that time, Mayor Glass responded with a letter that saying the owner did obtain permission, and it was done professionally, and Mrs. Larsen did not enjoy that response. And so another letter has been drafted. Sam responded to that letter, and yet another letter has been drafted. So I thought it would be best, instead of doing all these letters back and forth, to just get it out in the open, address it, and move on. So that's where it is.
Okay. Discussion on potential cost to the
So
city.
we're not
No.
discussing it?
No, you guys, I,
Okay,
well, I read Sam's response and, I agree with Sam.
So does the finance officer have the authority to grant permission to do such a thing?
Well.
My reading of it
Kind
says
of
no.
unclear, but, there's certainly an argument, probably a strong argument to be made, that she doesn't. Part of my letter, I'll just back up a little bit, part of the response was that, the letter asked, who authorized vandalism, and obviously, you know, nobody here has the authority or the desire to authorize, you know, vandalism, so that was the part that I wanted to clear out. When you look at that ordinance, it does read like maybe you need to have a permit. In talking to the finance officer, she's never had a request to notch out the curb before, so, and I think in the past when people have asked for that, it was not, nobody made it.
normally they come into the office, if somebody asks me, when do they need a permit? They need a permit for a structural change in a building or if concrete goes in the ground. Now, does that mean if sackcrete goes in the ground? No, I don't need to know about that. I do need to know if you're going to frame it up and have somebody come in and pour. Then you need to come to the city to get a building permit for that.
I didn't bring my book with me, but what I was reading about it says that if you're going to excavate a city street or curb, which I don't, it doesn't define excavate, does this count as excavating? I don't know, I wouldn't assume yes. That you have to, there's like a whole, there's like 2 pages you have to follow, starting with calling the dig number or whatever that is. And then you have to-
Excavation would be
Yeah,
That's
This is not,
It's not an excavation,
I don't believe this would be.
If a person owns a
Grinding
piece of
it,
property,
didn't they just grind it?
just grounded.
that person has a right to get access onto the property. And if it takes cutting the curb back, to me, that is getting access to the property, whether it's for
And then if you
handicap
keep
access.
reading, it says if you remove the curb, you have to restore it to the condition it was in.
Well, how,
Like,
if
you
you're
remove it for
gonna
whatever
take it
reason.
out in order to make a driveway through
Yeah,
there,
if they
then
put a
how are you
driveway there,
gonna
that'd be a
replace
different
it back
story,
to
because
where
then
it
you,
originally was?
if they put a driveway in, they'd be getting the building permit. Whereas this is just somebody coming to the finance officer. According to what I read, you have to come to the city council, get permission, and then if you alter it, it's gotta be restored to the way it was before.
Is there a timeline on restoration?
That's what I read. I'm not saying that it's right or that you have to agree with it. If you want to disagree with it, then go ahead and disagree with it, but that's what it says.
I think you're both right, there is not a timeline on restoration. If this individual who owns this property, if it turns out he got bum scooped from the city through misreading or whatever, I certainly don't think it's a smart idea to fine him, which we could do, I guess, but why would you? If the guy wants access, boy, this is a great opportunity for him to go ahead and get a building permit, pour an apron, and everybody wins. It's kind of how I looked at it. I mean, you know, I don't know that it should sit this way forever, but it sure would be a foolish waste of everybody's time, money, and effort to make him repair it and then take it out later when he wants to do a driveway apron.
I guess I'm wondering if he didn't see somebody that does that work in town and say, whoa, you know, someday when I get some money, I'm gonna put a garage there. I'd like to have my curb cut out while you're here.
He might have.
I mean,
He might have, yeah. No, I think you can notch it. I think it's arguable he probably should have applied for a permit. I don't know that it necessarily is excavation, it could be, but probably should have applied for a permit when I asked Pat. I don't think you'd ever seen this situation before, so if we made the wrong call, I think the best, if I don't know who this guy is, what's his name? Randy Hoyer. If Randy were here today, I'd say, Randy, get a permit to pour an apron and pour an apron.
Okay, Sam, what about in the future? Because the adjoining landowner is gonna build a garage right next to him.
I heard that.
And he will be cutting the curb soon.
He,
So what's the process?
he should go get a permit.
I'll tell him.
Please do.
And in the past, when people do, okay, to clarify Sam's statement, how no one has ever come in here, I don't want you to think no one's ever come in here to never cut a curb before. It's just normally if they're doing that, they will come in because they're doing new build, they're doing a driveway, they're doing some construction, whatever the case is, and that's just part of the process.
Now, is the permit on the material or on the labor?
The cost is on material only,
Okay, so to cut the curb, he's got no cost in that.
correct?
And there's no cost, because there's no material going down, so there's no
Correct.
cost. So how are you gonna write a permit for no cost?
Well, you could write a permit for no cost, but
That's what it would have to be. Just write out a permit, you got a permit to do it, but there's no fee, because there's no material cost, so you can't charge it. I mean, you gotta put labor in it, but you don't charge a permit on the labor.
Sure.
Okay, simple. All
Who was the
right,
professional that cut it out? Did they charge him?
he did it himself. Think,
Oh,
there you go. Well, if he would've come to me and said, is it okay to
you
cut
need an
that? I
apron,
said,
you need
"Sure,
an
you can."
apron on that. You
This
need
is
an
not
apron on
public
that.
input. Remember, we're not at public input right now.
It's my complaint. We're
We're-
dealing with my complaint. You're
Then
looking for
complain at
input.
the next meeting on the public input. We're not in public input
Like I
right
said,
now.
it needs
You're
an
part of the
apron.
public.
You're ignoring the apron part.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion on that? I think we're cool. Discussion on potential cost to the city, we talked about that. We had the motion signed and approved. Downtown sidewalk.
Okay, this is a single sheet. Lost Funeral Home came in to get their building permit for the new build of the funeral chapel. And when talking with the gentleman who's doing the work, he said they were looking at putting in a 6-foot sidewalk on the south. Currently, we have an 11.5-foot sidewalk there. I told him I did not think that would be acceptable. Just because in keeping with the continuity of downtown, all the other sidewalks down here, with the exception of this one across here, which used to be residential, that's why that's such a small sidewalk in comparison to everything else is 11.5 foot. So, after I got done discussing this with him, I called Patrick Andrews at CCOG to ask, and Patrick told me that in our ordinances, look at what the sidewalk specifications are. Unfortunately, all we care about, or all we reference, not that we care, but all we reference is the width of sidewalks in residential areas. We don't specify commercial or downtown. So then, so at 6.0207 is where it talks about sidewalks should be no less than 4 inches thick, no less than 4 feet wide, no more than 5 feet wide in residential. The part that Patrick said we should talk to legal counsel about is at 6.0214 when removal of a sidewalk. In this one, it states that any person removing or altering a sidewalk shall be responsible for replacing said sidewalk. And it's those 3 words that needed legal counsel. Does replacing mean a 6-foot sidewalk or an 11.5-foot sidewalk? And so that's why I brought it to you and Sam to discuss. And so their building permit is on hold until this is resolved. So the main door to the chapel will be on the south. So that will be their front door. So it's a question of whether it's 6 foot or 11.5.
Are they wanting that narrower so they can move the building closer to the street? Is that their purpose?
Well, if they go with the 6-foot sidewalk, they will move the building closer to the street. Because they'll measure,
Or they'll have a 5.5 foot long.
yes. And I'm not sure of that part, but they just asked that we give them an answer because they will start staking it, weather permitting, hopefully this week.
So to me, when you look at .0214, my read of it is you know, if I cut out something 30 feet by 11 feet, replace it with 6 foot wide by 30 feet, I haven't replaced it. The current sidewalk, as it sits now, I think they've got to ask for permission to remove it, and then they're responsible for replacing it upon taking the permit. And it definitely could be better. Our ordinance could say that in you know, the downtown zone commercial area, sidewalk shall be no more, no less than. It doesn't. We could always pass an ordinance that says that, but I certainly don't think at first blush the city can be faulted for requiring that what goes out goes back in exactly the same dimensions.
How long is that lot there, Pat, where he's going to put the proposed 6-foot sidewalk?
He'd do it that full south width, or south length. I'm sorry, I don't know the length of that.
You say it's 200 feet, we're talking.
I would say, because where the alley would come down through there, it's like 150.
Is he also going to take down the,
We're looking at 11.
Plum and Berglund building? Yes.
and that's gonna be
Oh,
part
they're
of,
taking that down too.
so, and that's gonna be
A
part
year
of
from
the,
now.
part of the funeral home area?
Pioneer Enterprises is what we know as Lost Funeral Home, and they essentially own that whole block, that whole half
Half
block.
block,
Mhm.
quarter block.
They own all of it, they own all the lots. They're not going to use all of that, they're only going to use the south and east portion.
I guess I was thinking if they weren't going to do anything at Qualm and Berglund's area, it'd be kind of goofy to have a narrow sidewalk
Right.
and then a wide sidewalk for 40 feet
Correct,
and then a really narrow sidewalk the
yes.
rest of the half block.
So are they going to do the sidewalk by Plum and Berglund now at the same time? Or
Correct.
just all of it? So they're gonna do all of it?
Correct.
And did they give a reason why they wanted to have less sidewalk?
Money. A 6-foot sidewalk is a lot less money than 11.5-foot sidewalk.
13 to 14 yards concrete, you'd be looking at less plus the labor to lay it. So you'd be looking at $3,000 roughly if you figure the labor in at the price of the concrete to have that additional 5.5 feet. So that's what their savings would be. And if we don't want them encroaching on city property, they could still maintain their 11.5-foot setback.
I just put a strip of grass.
Yes. It would be consistent then with the west half of what's there. With a, you know, a walkway coming out to the curb then
So would
by their main.
there be grass and then the sidewalk?
To be consistent with
Yeah,
what's
it would
to
have to
the
be.
west there.
West of there, yeah.
Is that what they were thinking?
Yeah, sidewalk would be near the street. And then.
Sidewalk would be near the,
Yeah,
so it
then
would
that's
not be the
Then it
same.
wouldn't be the same.
No.
No,
but
it
the
wouldn't
back-
look the same as this
Yeah,
residential
okay.
area, no.
Okay,
But the back side of the sidewalk would be in line with the residential sidewalk that's here.
Yes. Well,
No, no,
no,
no.
I think that'd be
No, there'd be a
grass.
strip
No,
of grass and
There'd be
then,
a strip of grass there.
yeah.
and then the 4-foot sidewalk.
It's gonna be tough for the blind to negotiate that, isn't it?
Nobody's notching anything with it. We know.
Well, I can do it for you.
So will the building look like all the other buildings? Will it be back, like, well, these are all,
Close to the,
they're all,
right on the sidewalk, basically.
And they have the right to have it look like the rest of the buildings in a block.
And we would want the same
we want
setback,
that, don't we?
that 11.5-foot
11.5 feet
setback.
from the curb.
Yeah, you'd want that. So,
Initially, the blueprints showed the 6-foot sidewalk, and I told them I did not think that would be acceptable. And so that's where it's on hold, and I said that I would ask you guys and city council, legal council, so.
I don't think it'd look good jogging that sidewalk.
No, I don't know.
you mean to have a 6-foot sidewalk up against the curb?
and
And
everything
then
else.
jog.
It should be the
I
same,
don't
yeah,
get
the
that.
same as the other town, yeah.
Because the jog would be where that
Alley
little building is there now.
Yes.
Yeah, that wouldn't look good, no.
So
I know
when
we're
they
talking
do this,
$1,000
they're going to
so-
fix the curb too, that they
Yep.
kinda,
Yep, it'll have new curb and gutter. And
So then going north, it would be narrow.
they haven't decided on what's happening going north yet. Initially, when they came to the office, they asked about taking that sidewalk out and having off-street parking. And when I talked to Patrick about that, because I talked to the builder and I said, well, how are you gonna do that? Because we have a storm sewer right there on the corner. And I said, are you just gonna build a swale? You know, so stuff comes down and goes into the storm sewer. And Patrick, again, with legal counsel, advised that probably not do that. Not allow that. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with the sidewalk going on the east side of that lot. The bad sidewalk is definitely the south side.
Is there something in there that says that if you reconstruct a sidewalk, it's gotta be down at the slope at the corner for wheelchair
they're
For
gonna take care of that.
handicap purpose, yeah.
Yeah.
ADA stuff.
And that was the other thing that they asked, is they'd like to have 4 handicap spots. 2 on the corner of Second and Iowa. So if your cars are facing north. And then if they keep all that parking on Iowa going north, 2 spots there. So where the 2 red, or the 1 red car, 1 blue car going north, and the 1 white car and 1, I don't know, black car. They'd like those 4 spots to be handicap spots.
Which would put them close to going up through, on the sidewalk then.
I can go along with that.
Yeah, I can, but I think that they should just keep the sidewalk in line with what's there now.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that is what I will pass on to them.
Okay, National Flood Insurance Program.
This-
Motion to approve participating in the program, should be a no-brainer thing.
This is the FEMA representative that was here last
Yeah.
month.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
I will make the motion that we approve participating in the program, the National Flood Insurance Program.
I'll second.
Now, the one question I have, which I need to confirm with Sam, when Mark Macy was here last month, he gave us both a resolution and an ordinance. And Sam, what is your thought on that?
So the resolution, as I read it, is, it's kind of substantive, but it's much more of a feel-good, this is important, flood insurance saves money, all that kind of stuff. The ordinance is as I read their draft, is a zoning ordinance. So the thing that I'd like to talk with that gentleman about and know more about is, my understanding is we have to pass this ordinance to, well, we can pass the resolution anytime we want, and then we have to pass the ordinance in order to have places in the floodplain or flood zone or whatever it's called be eligible. What I don't know, and I think we need to know, is are places that are currently in what has now been designated as an area at risk for flooding, are they grandfathered? Can they get insurance? Do you have to move stuff? Because if our whole grain elevator is in like a floodplain, it can't be there or it can't get insured, I don't know what good it does us, or we just need to make sure that we're not negatively impacting any people who are already there. There's gotta be a way that if my house is there and it's 100 years old or 50 or whatever,
Didn't he talk about that?
I can get grandfathered in. I don't remember.
Seems like he did.
Did he? Okay. Well, I mean, that's fine then, but like, obviously, anything new going forward would be subject to restrictions, and that'd be fine, because it's not there.
Well, there were restrictions as to floor heights,
Yep,
things like that.
yep.
So we can agree to participate, but we have to do our ordinance.
The ordinance is the key that, as I read it, gets you eligible for the program.
And maybe we shouldn't do this.
Well, I think I don't think there's anything wrong with approving participating in the program, because now the council says we want to do it. And
So then next month we'll do the resolution.
resolution
And
ordinance.
then the month after that, we'll do
Yeah.
So
the
this is
ordinance.
just first step towards doing a
Sure.
or ordinance.
Just,
Okay.
just like when you said you wanted to bring the cemetery to town.
Okay. Well, my motion will stand then.
Did we have a second? Melissa? Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Street swimming pool update. Lonnie, is Lonnie here?
Lonnie's not it.
Okay.
Are you speaking for Lonnie?
I can, to a
Okay.
certain extent anyway.
Do you wanna do the update on the street?
Do what?
Do the updates on the street?
Yeah, I'm gonna do, first off, I'll start with, we replaced a hydrant, a fire hydrant out in the swimming pool. We put in a whole new hydrant there. Were you guys aware of that?
Yep.
And then we put in a line underneath the street to water the football field, that new one they constructed, you know? That was done. Let's see, we've been lowering some manholes around town because we're gonna start street work in about 2 weeks. And they're gonna hit them if we don't lower them, so we got about 3 or 4 more to do. Swimming pool, I guess I really don't have nothing on that. Water, wastewater, can I talk about that too while I'm on?
Actually, before we leave street,
Okay,
so the single, sheet that you have, I went out and got estimates for laying some concrete. The first stretch, that $6,300, is on Circle Drive, in front of the apartment complex. The garbage truck, it's an area that we have patched every year. And this year, the garbage truck completely ripped up all the asphalt. And so we went out and got an estimate to what it would cost to put in, it's 150 feet around that apartment area, and doing a 6-foot wide swath of concrete. So taking the asphalt out, replacing it with concrete was $6,300. We didn't know how much this was gonna come in at, so that was our first choice, was to put concrete there. Then, after we found out it was $6,300, Lonnie went and figured doing something like he did on Dakota, and between 5th and 6th, where he dug it out, 18 to 24 inches, laid down a geo-track mat, or geogrid, geogrid mat, and then filled it in with rock and stone. And his estimate on that is 64 tons of rock and top material, and $300 for trucking, and an estimate of $2,500 us doing the work in-house. So, and apparently, I mean, this does seem to be holding up at the library on Dakota,
It is doing a really nice job.
so that could possibly be an option. So the
What
gravel.
was the total on that, how long did we?
We're estimating $2,500, it's not exactly, we figure 64 tons of rock material at $28.80 a ton. And it's $4 a ton for trucking, and so that, we figure it'll be about $2,500, we round it up. And that's us doing the work in-house. Lonnie would do it with the skid loader. So we wouldn't have to rent any equipment or bring anything else in, I don't know how
No,
he's
he
doing that.
rented equipment before to do the
Yeah.
street at the library.
But I think this is so bad that I think he can just dig it out with the skid loader.
Okay.
and it isn't so wide and so large, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was the whole street.
That was the whole street.
Whole block.
At the school.
So, and then just while we're talking about, that 25-foot by 4-foot, that's just replacing the section of sidewalk, by the property that we took the house down on, and that will be reassessed back to the owner, so. And then the 303 West Third, that is, the owner put in new curb and gutter, and there's a distance between the street and the curb and gutter, and we cannot keep it from washing out. And so that's just filling that in. So.
So is that between Union and Ofsted? That what 303 is?
No, that is between Broad and Union. That is Heidi's Weeple.
Oh, okay.
So I guess the second and third one, we're planning on just going ahead and doing. The question we need from you guys is, how do you want to handle the repair on Circle Drive?
Dale, do you know if they're gonna put some chip seal or something, some kind of sealer on top of that new part there by the library?
I would assume so, yes.
And when that's when the people come to chip seal, okay. Is there any chance that this area over on Circle Drive could be done before the chip seal people come?
Maybe.
I don't know if that's planned to get chip sealed. I don't think it is. I think it will stay exposed through this season and maybe looked at next year.
Okay.
I don't know how Lonnie's got that, but one other thing I wanted to mention on that water line to irrigate that football field, we're responsible for the excavation of the main and out to the curb stop. From that point, it's the school's expense to put the line under the road and the cement vault in the ground. So, just to make sure that's understood. Water, wastewater now?
Go for it.
Do you have a sheet for those expenditures on there?
Yes.
Sewer repairs during June, Ellen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thanks, Cosette.
sorry. It wasn't in my packet, but it's in here.
Are we, so 12B, there's no motion? Nothing
Well,
on this circle?
he just wanted to move forward and do all his at one shot,
Okay,
so then we'll come back.
okay, we're gonna come back.
I really don't need it, Brad, if you can't find it.
Nope, it's here.
Okay.
There you go, sir. That bottom one.
Well, we had some expenditures to the tune of 9,100, and I'll explain them to you. The first item is a kit to reseal a submersible pump, 1,600 and some, and sounds like a lot, but if we bought a new one, it'd be over $4,000, so, you know, that's pretty much self-explanatory. This replacement for my effluent meter, which was installed in 2003, so it was 16 years old, and it stopped working. When I fill out my discharge monitoring reports for the EPA, they want to know how much effluent we have every month, every day, the high and the low and average. And that's what that instrument is for. So, and the good news is, you know, when we spend the money on our wastewater plant here in the next year or 2 years, you know, we got the engineers working on it, that can stay there, so we don't have to put that in twice. The generator, I had an issue with that. It was, once a week it runs for a half an hour automatically, and then it shuts off. Well, it wouldn't shut off without me physically being there to shut it off, otherwise it would run endlessly. So we had to address that, and that's what that's all about. And then the last one is my inflow meter was acting up. It would go from an average flow, which was the realistic flow, and it would all of a sudden run away and go up to like 500,000, which would start my overflow and put this stuff up into my, what it looks like a harvester. That's when we get a heavy rain, that kicks in. So I'd show up for work and I'd have some stuff in there, and going, why is that happening? And then I witnessed it. So that's what that little deal is, 500 and some. We had to get a guy from Omaha up here and work on that to make it. Does that help you understand some of that?
Thank you. We're in good shape now,
Yeah.
ready for the next flood.
Well, with this last rain we just had here, watching that, so I sure hope it quits.
Do we need to get a motion to spend this $2,500 for Lonnie to
Well,
repair that
that's
circle
however,
drive?
it's however you guys wanna repair that section of street.
No, I like the idea of saving $4,000.
Yeah, I do too.
If it turns out as good as that one by the library, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, he did a nice
on
job
that.
on that. That came out perfect. I think we should get a motion to, you
We're jumping
know,
around, we're just trying to keep up.
I know.
2,500, let's be safe, go to total of, you know, not over 3,000. That makes sense? Don't spend over 3, okay. Can we get a motion to that?
I will make a motion to approve spending up to $3,000 for the Circle Drive street repair.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And also fogging for bugs for 2020, discussion.
It was brought up, to look into fogging for bugs for 2019, and, we did not file or apply for any grants or anything like that. We don't have a fogger, and we have to get somebody certified, because I don't think Lonnie's certification would allow him to fog. He can spray weeds and maybe spray for insects, but I don't know that that covers fogging. So, is this something that you would like to see Alcester do?
Yes.
Okay. So I will talk to Lonnie, and every year the GF&P has a grant to assist with the expenses of that, so we can apply for that in the spring.
Okay. Swimming pool updates. Do we have anything on that?
First round of, oh, did you wanna talk?
Oh, no.
First round of swimming lessons went well.
Dale?
They are done, so the second set will be in July. And, attendance at the pool has been phenomenal. The little munchkins are very hungry. We cannot keep food or ice cream. To start the season, that deep freeze we have in our office was plumb full. And it is overflowing. And it's July 1st. So, yeah, it's been a good season so far.
I've driven by there many times in the last 2 weeks just to check on the lifeguard situation. And every time I've gone by there, there's been at least 3 that I can see. At least one's up on one of the chairs, and then there's usually one over on the northwest corner. And the other one's up usually on the northeast corner. But they're watching all the kids. I think they're doing a fantastic job. So, did you have any more on that, Wanda?
I don't. I think they're doing a great job,
Okay.
and we're down a couple of guards, but we have a couple of Beersford guards that are stepped in, so.
Okay. We do have a copy of the water sample. There was a problem with the water. We did have another sample taken, and it confirmed that it was fine. So that wasn't a problem. Police department.
Before you leave that,
Okay.
I have a question to ask the council. The council, I guess I'm asking for input on how the council would like to handle it. Our city ordinance, or our water and wastewater ordinance says as long as there is a line that is to a household, whether that household uses it or not, they are charged the minimum. This became an issue when Brian Anderson's house burned down. Last month, when it was time to submit due bills, wanted to ask me how should she handle that, and I said, we have to act as our ordinance say we act. So we did submit a bill to the family for the minimums, even though the usage was 0, even though they weren't living there. That's what our ordinance says, and so that's what we did. Brian and Kayla called us when they got the bill and said, just curious as to why, and they said, well, the line is still there. We know you're not using it, but we apologize if this is adding salt to the wound, but we have to do what is directed by our ordinance. So they were okay with it, but someone else came down to our office and royally yelled at us for that. And I told that person that they will get a bill until the house is taken down and the line is capped. And so they will be getting another bill this month also. But they did come to our office to let us know the line is capped now. So I guess the question that I'm asking of the council is, in this situation, how do you feel?
What's the minimum?
$35. 18 for sewer and 17 for water.
And is the property owner responsible for capping at that point in time once the structure is removed?
Right, and then now they won't get a bill. So this month they'll get a bill because the house didn't come down until the 26th or
I have it
5th,
written down.
somewhere in there. But the following month they will not because the line is capped.
So they'll have basically 2 months of service to pay for.
Correct.
And that is how our city ordinances read.
That is, whether it's zero usage, you pay $35. If you have a water line, if you have a sewer line, $35.
So this guy over here, whose house that we talked about has no water, he's paying that?
Yes.
Just seems strange not to have it then.
The house over here on the corner, is it getting assessed water?
Yeah, that would be another one, yeah, really.
And that just goes
And
on
they
the
pay
tax
it,
bill?
somebody pays it?
It
No.
just goes,
This keeps
Not-
going to
yeah.
the taxes then?
I know
Okay.
we don't send it out anymore because we have no place to send it, but
The house that was just taken down out there by Mayor's, was it getting a bill too?
that one was gutted. That house was gutted. There was no,
It's,
I would
it,
think that
it was
the,
still, it was assessed.
the 35,
Mhm.
so,
that's what the ordinance reads, I guess.
So before we fix the sidewalk, we better cap the lines, or they better
they're
cap.
done.
Oh, that is done. Oh, that was done when the house was
The
taken.
three units that went down, they're all cattle. Yep. So. Did we act appropriately? Are you okay with how it was?
The only thing I can think of is that, like, God forbid it would happen again, like maybe let them know a little sooner so that they can plug it faster if they want to. I mean,
I'm sure they're at the mercy of the insurance company, I'm sure, I don't know what the process is or what they had to go through, but, and I know part of it was finding a time for Bill to get over here and take it down, because every time he tried, we'd get a bunch of rain, and then it would just be a mud hole. Okay, now please.
Okay. Police department,
Yeah, got stats to you guys. It's been busy. Same thing as always, but on the weekends, each officer, Austin and I are each making multiple arrests on weekends. We're strung out. Last weekend I was at a point where I was falling asleep sleeping at jail, so I don't know, it's just where we're at. But it's a busy time of year, and we have some downtime in the wintertime, but summertime it's just nuts lately. I know some of you know Austin hit a deer with the PD truck. Some of you may not know, but we had a deer strike with our truck, which sucks, but it does happen. It's currently at Carlson's being fixed. They think it will be, I talked to them today on the phone, they're thinking this week. Two things that they were having a hang up with was getting a siren in, and the one fender had to be repainted, so the graphics, we need to get replacement graphics. When Chief Doty was here, he ordered those graphics online. We had a local guy install them, but they were ordered online. The body shop's working with a couple of different options, but that's the two holdups right now, but it's being fixed. We did have a push bar on there. It was made out of aluminum. It was worth about $250. The body shop was not impressed, and neither was I. It didn't keep the deer out of the truck really at all. So what I'm gonna do is they're gonna not put the same aluminum push bumper back on. We're gonna see about next year if we can possibly budget it in. We'll put actual grill guard on there made out of steel. And so that will cheapen it up a little bit on our deductible payment. Body shop guy explained it to me, he's like, even if you just pushed on something with the push bar that was on there, he's like, it would have bent up. So he's like, it just wasn't, it's not a heavy duty and it's on a truck, so. So we're gonna go without that. We're gonna mount the stuff behind the grill and behind the bumper. And we'll see if we can budget it next year for an actual grill guard. Like if you see the deputies' trucks, they have a steel grill guard, which actually do first-hand experience really well with deer strikes. So I hit multiple deer as a deputy. Any questions on that? I didn't know where to go with it. We didn't have a body shop in town anymore, to my knowledge, that was open, so I went to Carlson's. Plus, they could tow it, so it was a 1 a.m. decision, you know.
Yeah. Well, there you go, there's your answer for the future.
What's that?
Her husband does.
Yeah.
Oh,
At the fairgrounds.
okay.
But that's all right.
Well, I apologize. It was 1
No,
in the
don't
morning,
worry
and
about it.
Austin called me, and
No,
I was half
sorry.
asleep.
No big deal.
Does George have a tow truck?
Not a tow truck, no.
Yeah, you know, when Austin called, it was leaking fluid. I didn't even want a chance running it, so I had it towed. Sounds like it maybe just got into not the actual radiator, but the overflow tank. But I just didn't want to drive it in case it was into the radiator. The Crown, I was gone this weekend. Austin said the Crown Vic, the air stopped working, but along with that, it started smelling hot. Turns out the AC compressor went out on it, and it was starting to shred the belt. So, we got that bill today, and it was $629. And it made me about sick to my stomach that we put $629 into the Crown Vic. But I didn't know, again, I was gone, and, you know, it's our only cop car right now.
But you could spend the money locally this time?
We did, we had our
Okay.
local, our shop here in town do it. So that was good. And he was quick about it, so he got us fixed up. There's a couple of critical issues still on that Crown Vic that if we're gonna keep running it, we're gonna have to get them fixed. The rear end is getting really bad. And the power steering is also starting to go out on it. You gotta 2-foot it, rev up the engine to make a turn. It sounds ridiculous, but
Is it possible to just hang it up and
I've
you guys
watched the
just
chief
share?
come in and out of the jail and courthouse parking lot. It looks like a plane that you don't know if it's gonna make it onto the deck of an aircraft carrier. It's real bad.
right now, it's our only vehicle.
When the truck comes back.
When the truck comes back, we could park it, keep it for the absolute emergencies. We can do that. It just slows down response times with the vehicle not being at the officer's house. That's the only thing.
But also if it explodes when you're in it, that's not good either, so.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the rear end's gonna go. It's bad. I was on the way to jail last weekend and I didn't know if I was gonna make it home. I mean, it was pretty bad, so. If we're gonna keep running it, we have a few critical items we've gotta get repaired on it.
If she's howling that bad, I think find a rear end and get it fixed,
Okay.
my opinion, because it's gonna leave you stranded wherever it goes.
I know it.
When we get the new vehicle, is this something we're planning on selling anyway? I mean, is this stuff that, it's gonna have to get fixed before we sell it anyway, or?
We have sold every used car we've had,
Yeah, typically we sell them right.
As is, or do you think?
as is, and we get about $2,000 for them. I don't know if we will on this one, but in the past, we've gotten either 2,000 or 2,500 for them.
I guess I'm nice.
What choice do you have?
Yeah, it's gonna be a while, so. Might have to put, I'm looking for opinions on that, but it might have to put a little bit more money into it. Or park it, run just the truck. on that note, we'll go from
I
there.
mean, I guess if it's, in the long run, if fixing it will help get a little more money out of it when we sell it, we're not out that much. It's just for the time being.
How much
How
labor
much-
is involved to replace that rear end?
Well, if you
You get a surplus or
get a
salvage?
used rear end, you're probably gonna have 3 to 4 hours on a hoist replacing it, because everything's gonna be locked tight.
Yeah,
You know.
they thought 4 to 5.
Total?
Yeah, on the rear end,
Yeah, because what is that, a 2006 or 12 or
11,
2011.
2011?
yeah,
Yeah, there should be a lot of parts for it out there.
so.
You just, everything clear out to the
And I think-
hubs will be replaced, right?
It's gonna be the simplest on that one.
I guess.
Or you can go through it and replace gears and.
So the other thing I had in your deal was we did a DCI shoot. I don't wanna brag, but I kinda do. Every agency there was shooting their duty guns. That DCI shoot that I sent you guys or put in your packet was Austin and I went with our small off-duty guns. We had already qualified with our duty carry guns. So we went with our tiny guns and we shot better than most that were there with their duty guns. So I kinda do wanna brag on that.
Okay.
July 7th, there's another deal I threw in your packet. July 7th, Union County wants to host a officer/kids night at the racetrack in Jefferson. We've been invited to go down, and every agency's sending a car down. Kinda wanted your guys' opinion on that. Obviously, I was worried about.
Yeah. Can we send a truck?
I was worried that we weren't gonna have 2 cars, so we couldn't even be involved. I haven't posted anything in town because I didn't know. Looks like we're gonna have the truck back, but, maybe Austin can take the car and hit a deer with that. Any objections to us representing down there? We would be the only one that didn't if we didn't go. And they're gonna give away a bike and some other stuff for the kids. Kids get to, Austin's volunteered to go, which I was for. I'll stay back and handle calls. We do have a part-time officer, a guy that approached us who is an officer in Union County, certified, was interested in doing part-time work for us. So, and he's a real solid individual. So I was thinking about putting another ad in for opening us up, because that would, the way I remember it, we have to open it up to, even for me to hire part-time, correct? So.
Fill out an app.
Fill out an app, but then I have to put a ad.
Notice, an ad.
Ad in the paper and such, right? Okay, so you'll see that, and then I would like to, we'll see what we get for applicants, but I know this one individual wants to apply. Did have a work-related injury. Be willing to discuss more of that, maybe outside of this active session, but it was me. Tornado sirens, Vickie touched on. I went over that with the fire chief when I first got here. My understanding at that point, this was last summer when I talked to him, dispatch can fire off our tornado sirens, or you can, myself or a fire department personnel can go down to the fire department and manually click them off. The CERT, which she's talking about, I do have some experience with that as well. I don't believe that's up and running anymore. But like I said, tornado sirens can be kicked off by dispatch or us manually doing it. As far as the cats go, I just made a note. I'm probably gonna go ahead and maybe buy three traps or so. Does anybody have any? I was thinking maybe 3 is, my thoughts on then is if we get a few cats in one session and Dick's okay with it over at the vet, we can haul at least 3 cats in.
Do you have one? Do you have a live trap?
I do have one small live trap, yes.
I wonder if there isn't one up in the way back garage at the city.
Yeah, well, I can check into that too.
Pete's Produce has one too for sale, but
Okay.
not three.
Well, and maybe I'll, yeah, if I do it one small live one, I think it would hold a gap. I don't know, I'll look into it. That's all I got unless somebody has any, oh, new car. I kinda need some opinions on this. I'm running into the same problems as I talked about last month. Latest we can order off the 2019 price list is August 6th, right in there. The cars are still averaging about 90 days. So they're kicking those cars out pretty fast right now, which is different from the Durangos and the trucks. If we don't order by August, that first week in August, we have to wait until October. And I'm all for that, but the problem is then the price goes up a little bit. So, and I don't know if we can chance it, being that the car may show up too early then. So I was kinda looking for any opinions on,
Do you have a preference? Would you rather wait, or would you rather get it? Would you rather have the 19, or do you just wanna wait and get the 20?
the only thing I like about the 19, Melissa, is the price. I know what the price is, but if we order right in that first week of August, which we still can, it may show up too early budget-wise. So I'm at a loss, I don't know what to do. The dealership, they don't wanna sit on a state bid ordered car because they said they don't make any money on them, and it's not a limited car where they just don't make enough on them to sit on them. I just don't know what to do.
So if we order that car and it comes in the 1st of November, our
Okay.
first payment would be due 1st of December?
Well, we're gonna do a loan to ourselves from CDBG, so that would show up on our budget.
It would show up on our 2019 budget.
So we
And
have,
then we'd have one payment, so.
And you don't know what kind of an increase you'll see on a 20.
I don't. He just, the guys, the dealership here where the Dodge cars are ordered out of right now in state bid said that they typically go up every year. To what degree, I don't know. I would know for certain in October, which is too late. I would feel a lot more comfortable, not screwing up the budget and waiting until October, but does it go up $1,000 or does it go up $200? I don't know. And again, not a problem if you're ordering a pickup, because they're at the 150 days or longer to get them in. So it's just the cars are faster.
If you wait till October, is there a chance that you could still have a 1970 mirror to?
No, on the state bids, Mayor, they order them in as needed, and there's typically that agency waiting for that car. I asked what's the longest we could wait, and he said, well, like a week, are you talking? I was like, more like 3 months, and he's like, no.
Well, okay, we make the CBDG loan to ourselves. That isn't an issue because that money's there. But the payment will be the issue, is that?
I suppose in the loan you could say you're gonna make your first payment in January.
Have a 30-day grace period on the loan,
You could do that.
is that?
Well, what's that gonna do with the budget, when the auditors come in and say you're over budget on this much for 19?
It would just be written up in our agreement or in our loan application to ourselves that we're gonna
So we
make
throw
the
it into
payment.
2020.
Well, I think the need is great, the need is here.
Yeah.
So thumbs up, Steve?
Well, and it could, we could be amongst 20 other agencies ordering right in at that last week, or the first week in August, and it could kick them back to 200 days, so that it could be just perfect. But on the off chance that everything would just come in fast, then I was worried about the budget, so.
Do you have an issue, Pat, with doing that? If we need to
I do
do
not,
the loan early?
I do not.
Okay, if there's not an issue with it.
Let's not take a chance that it's $1,000 higher.
Okay.
Order the new car. right?
The only other thing is then, the two free colors are white or silver. Do you guys have a preference on color? The base colors are white or silver. We had the white one here,
They look pretty cool.
yeah, it don't bother me none. I just,
Whatever color you want.
whatever's not the Crown Vic is my opinion.
Don't
Come on,
get,
that was the bees.
don't get pink.
So you guys don't have a preference? Okay.
Okay, let's go with that. All right, golf course update. David.
Well, we had a really good tournament out there for the Curdy Anderson Memorial. Everything went really well. The golf course is looking great. Some people say it's looking about as good as it has for years, so. Everything right now, today, is working. Can't guarantee that tomorrow morning, but we still have, we got the parts and the irrigation is going. We still have heads that get mudded up once in a while, so that'll be an ongoing project. We have a new member of the livestock family that's taken residence in our pond. There's an 18, 20-inch snapping turtle down there. I don't know what to do about that. I hope it doesn't take after a golfer. Junior golf lessons have been scheduled starting July 8th. There'll be a group at 10:30 and another group at 12:30. We're trying to work around swimming lessons and the pool being open in the afternoon. And then there's someone that asked about, we've got a 5-gang mower that originally we used on the rough. Now we use the tri-deck. And I'm the only guy that runs it. He was wondering if he could buy it. So maybe we want to think about surplusing. What's a vehicle surplus, or if you take it to the salvage yard, what's it worth, $150?
Couple $100, yeah, for whatever it weighs. This is a gang wheel mower?
Yeah. And it works, but.
You don't use it anymore?
We just, like I said, I'm the only guy that hooks on it and uses it, and I try to get away from doing that. We've been doing a good job with our other mower.
It isn't needed as a spare?
Well, that other thing just goes and goes and goes. I don't know, other than replacing blades on it. We really don't, it seems like it's really well made.
Well, then we need a committee to appraise it.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, maybe that'll be next, check, put that on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah, we're doing good up there.
Who's giving the golf lesson?
Me,
Okay. Okay.
in lieu of not finding anybody else.
Finance office updates. Pat?
Okay. So, I was at finance officer school, it was very good. They brought in some tremendous speakers. Yvonne got up and spoke and talked about the new things that were happening, or the new bills. One of the bills was the open meeting chapter. The quorum is traveling together for whatever reason, you have to post the date, time, and location. So if you guys were all taking a trip together, or a quorum of you was going, I would have to post it. Public comment is set in in our ordinances, and in our ordinance it says that it's at our regular scheduled meetings, not special meetings. Executive session is one of the things that have changed. They've added reason to go into executive session when you're talking about security, passwords, blueprints, locks, cameras, anything of that nature. I'm not exactly sure of the number yet, I went to the site, it's not up, but that went into effect today. And then, unsecured promissory notes increased from 5 years to 20 years, and then she also touched on the sales tax loss that the state is going to experience, next summer, or next year. So that was kind of the update of Finance Officer School. Mid-American contacted me, and during the months of July and August, they are going to redo all of our streetlights and replace them to LEDs. So I'm very excited about that. I think we're gonna see a huge decrease in our lighting bill, switching over to LED lights. In your packets, we had our biggest sales tax distribution ever in the 5 years. Our sales tax distribution this month was 31,000, and I've never had a month that big. So that was tremendous. You're gonna ask me why it happened, I don't know, but it's just nice that it did.
What about January of 2018?
Were we bigger than 31?
Yeah.
33.8,
Well,
second biggest.
second biggest. I was happy. The 2018 water quality report, that was published in last week's paper, and I do have the water quality report on our half door, so if somebody is interested on how our water fares and what kind of minerals or chemicals are in it, that is there. Online banking is set up, and the check signers that I currently have received the information. If anybody else wants the login information, you're more than welcome to get it. But for right now, I gave it to Mayor Tom and to Dan. So. Last week, the Horizon Dental had an open house that was here. And then they did a meal and a little program, brought in some guest speakers, and then they did the ribbon cutting at the clinic. And they did a great job with the remodel. They made it handicap accessible. They made the bays large enough so that if someone comes in that is handicapped and is in a chair, they can actually not transport the patient. They made it wide enough so that the patient could just lay down in their chair and we could work on them that way, which was nice. During the month of June, we had a citizen needing some hours of community service. And so they gave the city 30 hours of community service work, and the things we had them do was clean the storm sewer grates around town. They filed away some old documents that we had. They hauled the Christmas decorations from the library down to this building. We're getting ready for the move. And Dee did not want to have to worry about her Christmas decks. I think we're probably gonna be just disposing of those decorations anyway, because she'll decorate differently in this new building. The open park shelter got 2 coats of paint. So the posts, the ceiling, that's all painted fresh. New mulch was put in on all the flower beds and the 2 signs and around this building. We did that.
Did that paint cover up the
Yeah.
vandalism?
It was just in pencil, but
Yeah.
they covered it
The
up.
swastikas, if you look hard, you can still see them, but it's better. It's better than it was.
So I, not to interrupt you, but when I went to sign up for Ava's birthday party on my calendar, somebody had written inappropriate things on the, so I just crossed them out, it's not a big deal, but
Thank
just so
you.
everyone knows they're going into the other shelter.
Yes. And some very active little ones up there. And then, of course, we had them do just some maintenance here. And then probably the biggest thing they did is our new picnic tables came in and they are all assembled and ready for use. So I just need to work with Lonnie and haul them up to the picnic shelter. So they are out here. As a lot of you already noticed, we had 3 houses go down last week. So the old post office building went down, the house up on Iowa went down, and then the house that burned. We'll have one more house going down, and that's on West 3rd Street. And that's going down for new construction to come in, so that's positive. The Beta sorority donated $1,000 to the city for the pool chase lounge chairs. So that was nice. And the Lions Club, they talked to us a couple years ago about purchasing some benches to put in the city park. And they went ahead and did that, but then they got the benches put together, but then nobody's ever contacted me about getting them in the park. Well, Chris Hansen from the nursing home contacted me, and they're ready to go. So sometime I just need to get some volunteer people together and we do some sapcrete and actually put them around the merry-go-round area and campground area was their thought, so.
In the shade, probably.
Probably, yeah. So, anyway, they have 3 benches available for the park.
Do we have talking about the campground, do we have a permanent resident there and stuff?
This person who's staying in the park is a traveling nurse, and she has paid through the 7th of July.
Oh, he is paying.
Mm-hmm, yep, and,
I haven't noticed any problems, but.
no,
No, she's just getting her life back together, so she's good.
yeah, and she made connection with the police, you know, before she even started staying here, so,
Good.
yeah, I'm not sure after July 7th if she's gonna continue to stay or if her stint is done as a traveling nurse, I'm not sure. But she's a professional camper, she has a ceiling fan and light in that tent.
She has a what?
Wow.
Ceiling fan and light.
Oh my.
I don't know how she
In her
does it.
tent.
In her tent, yeah. So, anyway. The elected officials workshop is in July and the deadline for that is July 5th. So if anybody is interested in attending, they just need to let me know, so I can get the registration sent in. So, and it's $50 a person. So, some of the topics that would be covered that day, the open meeting laws, executive sessions, the conflict of interest for municipal officials. Brad Wilson will talk about the work comp fund and municipal officials and employees from a HR perspective, and then liquor licensing and laws. So those are the topics that day. It's a one-day event, 9 to 3. So. And on June 15th, Vickie sent an email to me stating that she drove by the pool 3 different times on that same day, same time, and she only saw 1 lifeguard. And so I looked at the logins on who was all on staff that day. It was a Saturday. Yes, it was a Saturday at 2:10 in the afternoon. And we had our 4 strongest lifeguards, most seasoned lifeguards on duty. And so I talked to the lifeguards and I asked, what is the policy? And the policy that was set up a few years ago is if there's 7 kids or less in the pool, only 1 guard needs to be out, just watching them. If there's 8 to 15 kids, 2 guards, or anything greater than 16, all the guards will be out. In discussing that, we talked with Kendra and Jackie, and both of them agreed that we will always have 2 guards out. So they changed that policy right then and there. So, all right, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. See, we need a motion to approve the June warrants.
I'll make a motion to approve the June warrants.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Employee paychecks, pay stubs, and detailed vacation time.
Okay, so in your packets is something that looks like this. And today was payday, so I just randomly chose 2 people. I chose a person that is a seasonal person, and then I chose Wanda. So I know at the last meeting we had, there was some question about, how as council members will you know what is happening with respect to comp time, vacation time, sick leave? So when you sign off on warrants, you always have the ability to look at our punch-ins and how many hours we have worked and whether or not, you know, overtime or sick or comp time was used or accrued. So a seasonal employee is not going to have any of those items. And that is displayed also on the check. There's nothing on this bottom line of the paycheck that tells you that. If you go look at Wanda's check, there is a line in there that the bottom line under gross pay says the hours available and year-to-date. So that is sick, vacation, and comp. So the first number that you see in each of those categories is the number of hours that are available. The second number is what they have used year-to-date. Now that's what shows up on the check, and that tells you what occurred during that 2-week time frame. Then I included her punching in and out for the 2-week time frame period, so that you can see if hours, either sick time hours were used, or if comp time hours were used or accrued. So the question that happened prior to the meeting was, how do we keep track if we're only keeping them 30 days? How do we keep track of those hours? So, do you have a thought at all?
For the comp time. Usually we just try to use them within that month period, and usually everybody does. You can tell whether they're accrued, you know, at the bottom and when they're accrued, and
If you guys want, we certainly could do some sort of a spreadsheet, if that would make you feel better, that you see every month.
I thought that's what did we not decide that last time? That it was going to be presented to the council every month, like it used to be? No? Maybe we didn't. I guess we didn't. Everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy, so I'm gonna say no, we did not. The manual says that if you work overtime, it's gotta be presented to the council at the regular monthly meeting. So I think that should cover it. I mean, if it's being presented to us every month, every 30 days, then,
I guess the definition is presented.
so you.
My interpretation is, this is presenting it to you, but I don't think that's your interpretation of it being presented to you.
That's a very good point. If you go back and read the old minutes, each individual employee would come in, and if they had overtime that they wanted to be, or comp time, or whatever they wanted to be paid for, they came in and asked the council for it, and then the council would approve it. Or not approve it, usually approve it, but every once in a while not.
So this is for the coming month.
So, yes, so.
No,
The
This
last
would
month,
be in arrears,
yeah.
because otherwise you would have no, like,
So why?
So it says
so if
that
we-
you're supposed to get mayor's approval if you can, you know,
For overtime.
right.
Yeah.
There may not, like, if you have an emergency come up, you may not have time, especially for the police department. If they hit 40 hours, then they're on a 911 call, they can't stop, call the mayor and say, hey, is it okay if I respond to this?
I'm thinking more of Dale too, because he has a lot of alarm
Right.
calls,
Yeah.
and has had a lot this summer.
and I'm certain his phone was going off with all that rain.
So the presenting every month is more for the stuff that doesn't get approved ahead of time because it can't be. And that gives us an idea of like what's going on with you guys, why are you working over 40 hours? That's my interpretation of how it used to be. And then for some reason that just stopped. And I don't know why it just stopped, it just did. Or it just didn't get put in the minutes that it was being done.
That hasn't been done since, in 5 years that I know of.
I've never seen it.
I've never done it. To me, you know, the presenting is, you guys have our time cards, you know, you see the breakdown of how many hours each person works. Plus, if this is not readable, our stub will tell you how many hours we had. So, but if you want something different, we'll gladly do that.
Well, every 2 weeks I signed all the paychecks. And I make it a point to look and see the overtime that was used and who used it. And lately, there's been very, very little overtime, if any, that has been on any of the paychecks in the last, at least the last 3 times. And I even made that remark to you when I'm signing it, that they've done a really good job on the overtime. But if you need something different than that, well, we can certainly do it.
Do we want us, all of us, want to see a copy of all the pay stubs?
I do.
And with that,
How much more time would it take you to put all that into a spreadsheet? Is it just like a quick,
I always look at the ones that I sign.
just look at the ones I signed.
So I'm assuming for each category, you wanna know what was accrued and what was used, and maybe an explanation as to why.
Couldn't we do this? These sheets here, where we come in and do the audit, monthly audit, check some pay stubs at that time. I mean, that'd give each person a chance.
but then you're not
each
seeing the
month
whole.
to check some. You don't need to do them all, just randomly check some, see what's going on. You can come in any day of the week and you take one, I wanna look at 5 pay stubs just randomly. And she has no
Right,
problem with
but
showing to you.
that's a whole different ballgame. This is checking to make sure Pat's not writing checks to herself or something. The paycheck stuff, it's not about suspecting that someone's defrauding the system. It's just about making sure that everybody's getting paid what they're supposed to and they're following the rules in the handbook.
We have 6 full-time people that are eligible for overtime, right?
That is correct. So the information that you would like to know is hours accrued, hours used. Maybe you don't wanna know an explanation as to why. And then, the balance, the month-end balance.
Yeah, I think that. Unless it's gonna take
A lot of
extra,
time.
it's gonna take a lot of time, then that's
Then,
just
yeah.
going backwards.
Right.
Well,
And each employee can do their own too. I mean, if they don't wanna come to the meeting, like if they need, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do everybody's.
well, it is only 6.
So what if we all just got a bleep of this line from their pay stubs on each person? Doesn't that tell you, you have 33 hours, you've used this?
Right. The
Would
only thing it
that-
doesn't tell you is why, you know, but I don't know, I guess I assume that if the police department has
But if we
LTAs.
questioned it, we would ask you why.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I have an explanation on the time cards because I don't remember from day to day what I do. So I'm certainly not gonna remember why Jeff was out last year. You know, so I usually have an explanation. Sometimes I forget, but I usually have
and
some.
Wanda does write that, that's in these, like in hers, you know, she wrote that
Sick.
she was sick or she used her comp time for babysitting, or if we
Well-
have something, high wet well
Yeah,
alarms.
We have a rule that when your comp time gets up to a certain amount, it has to be paid out. Doesn't that cover what we're looking at?
Well, it has it in the past, so,
Well, but we just got
But
that
if we,
taken care of.
it,
So from now on, that should cover it. I mean, if somebody gets up to, what's the number of that account? 16 hours, they have to use it, period. If they don't, they lose it. So doesn't that cover what you're wanting? I don't know.
I didn't have the question, Linda had the question.
I know it's because I didn't know how, if we have to start, if we had so many days, how do we know that we've got 16, but what if these are from 6 months ago, some of these? You can't do didn't you say there's
It's 30 days.
30 days? So that's my question, how do we know that it didn't happen, that at the beginning of the year I didn't work 5 extra hours? And I haven't been paid for that. Now it's the middle of the year.
And you wanna use your hours.
That was my question. How do we keep track of that 30-day period?
The only thing I can say is if you had a sheet that said our month-end balance every month, and then you would know. Because if, like you saw on the vouchers that you signed, somebody used 13, but they gained 4, so the
Right, so
net
then,
was
yeah.
9. So,
And obviously you use your oldest ones first.
exactly,
Mhm.
so.
So my question, I just don't know how, I mean, I don't know how much stickler we want to be about this 30-day deal.
I think that 30-day is really tough to do.
Especially with such a small group of employees.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, 2-man offices everywhere. 30 days, summer is my
But it is
busy,
switching.
busy time.
We are changing.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Eventually, not right now,
But-
but
right.
it is
Yeah.
going to change.
I think that is a really tough
So are we
thing.
just gonna give a little leeway just in case something happens? That's.
Normally, I remind them, okay, you need to use this in a timely fashion.
Okay,
And usually they do.
okay. I mean, I just don't want to get into this
Is
situation.
there new
again.
software?
There's
Which is
two,
what I'm
there's
at.
2 employees that do not have any count time. 2 out of the 6 that do not
Okay,
have
so
any.
there's just
Well,
4.
actually, there's 3.
A rolling, yeah.
So
3
just 3
employees.
of you that.
Mhm.
Competent.
Have a little
I mean,
bit.
even, like, quick
Yeah, I just
software.
don't want to get into that situation and then we have to go
Lose
through
track of it
something
again.
again and.
Well, I will put something together for our next meeting, and you can say yay or nay. And this might be a document that evolves until we find something you like.
Okay.
Sounds good, thank you.
Where we at? Library assistance, July 9th to the 12th.
So the library is closing on July 3rd, which is Wednesday. And so then she'll be closed through the holiday. And then on the 8th, it seemed like something was going on, and then she's gonna start packing up the books. And so what she needs is some adult assistance, preferably somebody that has a cordless screwdriver. Because we need to disassemble all the shelving units, and she said it's a Phillips head. And then keep track of the screws, and then make the move with the shelving units over to the new building. And then the shelving unit will be re-put together, and then the boxes of books. And I thought she was using students for that, but your board is doing that, or other people?
I think there better be some students involved.
Okay.
Because one board member just had a knee replaced, he ain't gonna be carrying 2 big boxes.
Okay.
And the other 3 of the 4 are ladies.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna be carrying 4,000 pounds of boxes.
Well, and I offered a couple of 2-wheeled carts to her, but she's like, oh, I don't think we can use 2-wheeled carts, so I'm like, all right then. I would not wanna carry all those boxes of books, but anyway,
So where are the carts at, excuse me? They here? The
no, they're at
carts?
my house,
They're
but
at your
I
house.
will gladly bring them wherever
Well,
you want them.
well, I'll keep that in mind.
That's how I would move them, stack them up, use man, wheel power.
Well, we could almost wheel those into that vehicle. And
Yeah, make life a lot easier. I
Okay.
agree.
thank you, that might come in handy.
So,
Okay.
you guys can think about it, if there's somebody available. She said she'd be willing to work, in the evening hours. I have Mark Dykstra, I think he'll be available either during the day or in the evening, whatever works. So if you could be available to assist during this process, that would be great. Or you know of someone, that'd be great too, just let me know.
Okay. Budget committee, need to set a meeting date in July.
Is it July already?
I know. So probably not this week. So anytime the 8th through the 26th,
25th through the 27th, I'm out of town.
okay?
I would prefer the week of the 15th sometime,
Okay,
anytime in that week.
all right, I'm open, during the day. Okay,
Yep.
What-
Thursday will, so the 18th will not work,
okay,
so either 15, 16, 17, or 19. And during the day is fine. Do it. How long does it usually take?
I'd allow hour and a half,
Morning of the 17th?
that works for me. What time? 9? 8? 9? Okay.
Okay. Temporary lifeguards, motion to hire temporary lifeguards at suggested pay rates.
We have 2 lifeguards that are willing to come over from Beersford and work during our short staffed hours. They are Summer Rolke and Lacey Mockler. They are guards, first-year guards over in Beersford, and Kendra recruited them to come over here and assist us. So, being first-year guards, they will make minimum wage, which is $9.10.
I'll make the motion that we hire these 2 lifeguards to come to Alcester for our temporary needs.
I'll second it.
What about a pay rate?
$9.10.
At 9, 10, hire them at 9, 10 an hour.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. Do I have a motion and a second? Any discussion?
Did anybody interview them? I'm assuming they're certified, they've got everything.
Yep, they are certified, they provided me with their certification. Kendra works with them in the Beersford pool.
We did not interview because if we did interview, we would not have had the pool open for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We were down to 2 guards and sometimes 1. So,
And they'll never be working alone, they'll be working with our guards.
Okay, so we have the motion and a second to hire these 2 at 9, 10 an hour. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Reminders and updates. Free green fees weekend, July 6th and 7th. Swim lessons, July 12th to the 15th. Oh, second session, July 15th to the 22nd. Water tower cleaning, August 7th to the 9th.
Is that the outside now?
Yes,
Yeah.
it'll be pressure washed.
Fair board update.
Yeah, the fair is August 1st through 4th. Thursday night, entertainment is Wild Card Band, Harlow, Screw. Friday night is, let's see, which one was that? The Kid Pedal Pole, which has gotten to be a big thing. We're debating about possibly moving it down to the bigger part because it's getting so many kids. Car and tractor show, they're encouraging people to come to that more. Tractor pull is Saturday night, which was probably their biggest take-in. We are having a juggler, they paid money to have a professional juggler coming in for entertainment. I think that's on Friday night. Free supper on Saturday. And they promise this year we will not run out of meat, it will all be cooked. Last year that was a hot item.
Cool.
So, and then there's a group band coming, I take it back, the Jugglers on Saturday night. And Back 40s band is coming for supper entertainment during the supper. But it's, look at your schedules, it's packed, there's a lot of stuff, so. But we've also heard a rumor again, since I was at Fair Board, that the fairgrounds is sold. So I came up here to Pat and I said, since when is the fairground sold again? He hadn't heard it either. And it's out there that the elevator says that
they bought it?
they bought it, but, well, I heard him say at Fair Board, the county commissioner, Kevin Jofer, said we put over $100,000 in that fairground in the last 3 years, we're sure not gonna, or not selling it. So I don't know where that rumor is coming from.
I think we'd know it first, wouldn't we?
Yeah, that's what I said to
Yeah,
her. I said, I
exactly.
hadn't heard anything, and Janet called me and she said, how come you didn't say anything at Fair Board? I said, because I didn't know it, we just had city council. So, but the elevator is working possibly with the railroad.
I hope they get it done.
And, but there is a big issue about the corn being down there. That was really brought up.
Yes, I agree.
They're taking a big look at that, if the contract's even worth it, because it's,
Not let them use
yeah. Yeah, it's a mess.
Okay,
And it still smells. Last night, you could
Yes,
still
it's
smell it.
awful.
So, but the commissioners were discussing it at their meeting, so I haven't heard, but, so.
it. They'd be the ones that decide, but
Yeah, it's the commissioners who decide.
it's out of our hands, and let's,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
It's good.
So,
okay.
that's all.
All right, well, thank you. HRC update.
I have nothing, you know, I just signed a document,
Yeah.
minutes, and that's it.
Dan isn't here, okay. I did actually hear that there are at least one person on a list to rent if an apartment ever comes available, so that's good news. Okay, executive session if needed. They need the executive session for anything? No? Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:42. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Big plans?
Darling, did you say you had a concert, do you have a concert this?
When the kids were little, we'd find fireworks.